Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 204. This is Steve Crane. I got Nate Hale in the garage as well. And we are joined in the garage and also at the table this week, Shawn Wilkinson. Welcome back. Tips the hat and everything.
Thank you.
Actually, Nate, you can turn me down maybe a little bit. Got a little excited on the beginning. Sorry to blow out your speakers. Tonight, we are going to be, thank you to Tinderbox at Easton for the Plasencia Cosecha 149 or 149 Cosecha. Seen it written both ways. So we'll just read it off the band. That's going to be the featured cigar tonight for part one. Also, thank you to Altadis. We are going to have the, what do I have here? Romeo Julieta, the Reserva Real Nicaragua, which we featured before on there. So thank you, Altadis. Thank you, Josh Bentley, for the support there. Tinderbox at Easton can be located in Columbus, Ohio. If you're in the area, stop by Tinderbox at Easton. Or also you can contact them if you want some of the Plasencia line shipped to you. They can definitely do that for you as well. So if you don't have a brick and mortar nearby, you can be the remote one from them or for them. And if you do have a brick and mortar, definitely check them out as well nearby, wherever you guys are listening. Also want to thank BS Cigar Company. BS Cigar Company has gold and silver available. Gold is actually made by the Plasencia family, coming out of their Nicaragua factory, as opposed to what we're going to learn about a bit about this Plasencia 149 Cosecha. So the gold is going to be made by Plasencia, Nicaragua. The silver is going to be made also in Nicaragua at La Zona from Espinosa. So Eric Espinosa and Hector, the guys at Espinosa Cigars, have helped us out with the BS Cigar Company and did a great peppery blend with the BS Silver. Also want to thank you guys at patreon.com/bourbon and BS podcast. We have, like about 20 or so Patreon members right now. So we appreciate the continued support. It also gets you a discount at buyjack.com/bourbon and BS for any of the swag. And I'm still kind of back and forth with that buyjack.com, John over there, and trying to get the new stuff up online, the shirts. Nate's got the pink charity shirt. He's planning on pulling that down. I haven't looked today to see if it's off of there yet.
I'm pulling it down?
I hope not. I've got the green one, which is going to be our next charity shirt for St. Baldrick's Foundation. So that will be arriving. And then Sean's got the OG on, the original gray, black, now faded black, because he sports it a lot. I love it. He's got to get some new ones. We also want to thank you guys. If you want to donate to the podcast or contribute rather, or buy us a bottle, Venmo at Bourbon and BS. That's it. We're going to be drinking tonight Peerless Double Oak. We featured Peerless before or no?
No.
Never had Peerless yet.
No.
We've enjoyed it, just not on the show.
Correct.
All right, so this is our first Peerless bottle. Sean brought us this bottle.
It wasn't until recently that Peerless was even available in Ohio. And currently, it's still just the small batch rye, I believe, that's available in
Those
Ohio.
two, yeah.
This is something that you actually have to go to either a state that carries it or to the distillery.
Right. So Sean brought this Double Oak, which is we've all taken a little sip of, and it really. No, I'm just kidding.
I swear.
Nate had a tasting note, and we're like, "Oh, cool!" And he's like, "Don't, that's mine." I'm like, "Yeah."
And then Steve started saying, "It's like, damn it!"
All right. And you're right. So what I think, no. So guys, I hope you guys are having a good week. We are at the tail end of January. We've had some snow in Columbus. I don't know what the weather's like for you guys where you're at, but hopefully you aren't we've kind of talked about a bit with the seasonal depression and everything like that. So hopefully you guys aren't getting into that hibernation mode. We're going to talk a bit about that. Checking in on mental health is what we're going to be talking about for the second part. Because Sean's been the first time you were on, we talked about your story. We talked about your roads, where you're at, and the big hurdles you had to deal with health wise.
Yep.
And so when talking to Sean about what we want to talk about in part two, he brought up something to do with mental health. So, we've danced around it. We're not experts, but if you guys are interested in the conversation, or if you have questions for Sean or for us or for just the community, throw the comments and questions out there. We'll try to, between Nate and myself and even Sean, we'll try to kind of stay on top of those to bring back up later on in part two. So without further ado, let's talk about Peerless Double Oak. So, Shawn, thank you very much for bringing this. I hope you guys have heard of Peerless if they sell it nearby. Hopefully, this will point you guys in a direction here on what we think of this Double Oak, which, again, I don't know if it's available in other states or just at the distillery, but I know it is available at the distillery at the very least. So, Shawn, where'd you get this bottle if you want to give a shout out?
So I work for an awesome company called Pittsburgh Jet Center. They are a private charter company, and I do some sales for them, sell some charter. And we had a Christmas party about a month and a half ago, and it was at the time we were all very drunk, but at the same time they were giving out these bottles to a few people. Fortunately, a few of them left them behind that night because they were too drunk to remember it. So I go and ask the next morning. I asked my CEO Clayton, "Hey, there's a bottle of Double Oak sitting down there. Anybody gonna touch that?" And he's like, "You want to take it?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, man! I'll put this I'll bring it back to Columbus and put on this podcast, and I love to be a part of." And he was like, "Sweet." So I got to mention Thoroughbred Aviation provide the bottles, and I think their aircraft. They go out and acquire aircraft for operators to help them kind of get planes and get them in the fleet and get them on board. So just shout out to them and to all my people out at Pittsburgh Jet. They've just been a great company to work for, and just blessed to even have this nice bottle. And I'm excited to be able to share it with these two. When I told them about this bottle, actually I was pretty drunk the night I got it and texted a picture to Steve. I'm like,
you sent me a few pictures that night, and I tell you what, this was
were they all blurry?
The least offensive one.
Okay, good.
It was of the bottle. I said, "Well, what's that a picture of now?" "Oh, it's a bottle of whiskey." Thank God.
Talk about
he must have passed out.
I'm like, "You like this?" And then I sent a picture. I'm like, "Thank God I sent him that and something else." So anyway, I told Nate
a bottle for frame of reference.
Yeah, I told Nate about it a few weeks ago, and he was like, "We got to get you on." So they're very excited about it, man. So I'm excited to share it, and this is a great community, and just always happy to be a part of it. And
well, you talked about wanting to be on and having the bottle, and so when I was looking at the calendar after we were actually wrapping up an episode, I was like, "Hey, someone had to reschedule, so we got the 19th open. You want in?" You're like, "Sure."
Yep. I'm excited.
I'm really excited about the bottle, and I'm happy to have you here, I guess, too.
Thank you. Well, whatever.
I don't think Steve or myself, or probably some of our listeners as well, don't have to ever worry about being so drunk they forget a bottle of Peerless. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon.
I'd have to drink about a bottle and a half of that. I wouldn't forget it. I'd wake up like, shit, where's my bottle?
Well, thank God I came back and found them. That's all I got to say.
Yes. All right. So, Nate, what do we got on Peerless? They are in Kentucky. What part of Kentucky?
Well, so they originally started out in Henderson, Kentucky in the 1880s under the name Worsham Distilling.
Is it a family name?
I don't know if it was a family name or not.
I would imagine.
And then it should be. And then it became Peerless later on when another entrepreneur, Henry Craver, took over the company. So really they started distilling under the name Peerless in 1889. And then at the time, like the first several years, almost a decade, they were only producing about 8 barrels a day.
8 barrels.
8 barrels a day.
Okay.
And then Bottled and Bond Act of 1897 went through, and they had made some changes in their production, and they actually were then doing over 200 barrels a day.
Okay.
So when he came along, when Henry Craver came along, basically within the span of a decade, they went from 8 barrels a day to over 200 barrels a day. And then also, they were a bonded warehouse, so government armed security, all that fun stuff. During the Prohibition era of the 1920s, they were actually one of the few distillers that actually had a medicinal license.
So they stayed going.
Yep, they were able to keep going. Obviously we talked about it in the past. There's only like a handful of distillers that were able to do that in the 1920s, and get that certification from the government to continue distilling for medicinal reasons. One of the cool things I found out, so each distiller in Kentucky has what's called a distilled spirits plant number. And so it's like a unique identifier to that distillery. And so when Peerless began, their distilled spirits plant number was 50, and they still have that number to this day. All the newer distilleries and everything, it's up in the 20,000s.
Oh, wow. So they are one of the first ever.
They're an OG.
They're an OG, just like Shawn's shirt there.
Yeah.
I tend to wear my shirts for many years. This will be one of those. So.
Yeah.
It's nice, man.
And so,
I like that.
it's going on now for 5 generations. The gentlemen that run it now are great grandsons of Henry Craver.
Okay.
Their names are, one's named Corky.
Okay.
Corky and Carson.
Corky
and now
and
they
Carson.
are located in Louisville.
They're in Louisville now, yeah.
Yep.
I've had several friends. We have a bottle actually donated for an upcoming podcast of Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. That's going to be from Jim Johnson, who's a member of the Bourbon and BS community.
He loves Peerless.
That's what I was saying. So he has been down. He stocked up with like one of each bottle he got his hands on, or able to get his hands on, from Peerless. This was one of the ones that he had purchased, actually. So you had just sent me all those, questionable pictures,
right,
including a bottle.
Yep.
But
absolutely.
So a couple days later, I think it was that Jim came in with this and was like, "Hey, have you heard of this?" I said, "Actually, I have." So I knew Peerless, the what was it, the rye and the bourbon, right? So those were, and then he's also brought back some small batch stuff too. So Jim's a huge fan, as Nate said, and so he's also donated a bottle to the podcast, which we really appreciate.
So I know I've had the small batch rye, which is available in Ohio.
Yeah.
What Jim seems to really love are the single barrels. So the single barrel rye, the single barrel bourbon, which is basically the colors inverted.
Yeah. And there was I forget which one, because he's brought them in for me to sample, and fantastic.
Yes, great stuff.
So we got to make a trip down there. Where are they at? Louisville. Yeah, they were closed when we were down there.
Yes,
if I'm not mistaken, in June. So, all right.
So, Steve, I know you wanted to take a sip before we started.
Yeah.
Why was that?
So a lot
of times we wait till after.
I know, but typically I feel as though we start with the cigar. And so at that point we don't have, and honestly, just this sip right now, it's not the same as when I first took a sip. So I think that kind of maybe goes into it a little bit. The fact that Shawn had not had this before, so there's no frame of reference, even off of memory. Yep. So this is something that I figured that we should, at least with something like this, maybe start a new tradition. We might go back to the old, but it's nice to kind of have a sip of something before we start. Maybe let it sit for a minute, have a drink of water, then you light up the cigar and hopefully have a somewhat fresh take on the cigar too. Once we get into talking about all this stuff, it's like I said, I don't know about you guys, but for me, taking a sip of the Peerless after taking a puff of the cigar, it is different.
Yeah,
it is. Sure.
So, Shawn, we'll start with you, since unless you have more on Peerless. I'm sorry, Nate.
No, that's well. So one thing about this.
What about this bottle, particularly, if you have anything?
Yeah, so this bottle is going to be retail on this is going to be $134.
Mm-hmm.
So it's obviously not a cheap bottle, but like even in Ohio, the small batch rye, I think that's like $85.
Yeah,
so there's
close to $90 for sure. Yeah,
yeah, their stuff's not necessarily cheap, but it's damn good. Proof on this is 107.9. It is barrel strength, so it's not watered down at all. But on this one, they do not release or disclose their mash bill.
Do you have details on the double oak process?
No, they don't. Double oak. So typically, like if it's anything like Old Forester, so it's going to age in the virgin white oak barrel, and then that barrel is going to be charred, and then typically they'll do a second barreling on a toasted barrel.
This says, in new oak though. It could be toasted. I don't know. Do we have an age statement anywhere on what you found?
It's 4 years
total.
Yeah, that's the only thing I found about it. It's 4 years.
All right. So anyone out there, we got over a dozen live right now. Ray says, I think it's better for us to have you take your first sip on the show than we get to take the journey with you. We only had one sip, so we just put it in drive before we haven't really gotten out of the driveway yet when we went live. So
take a journey into time.
Ray just gotta see who gets drunk.
Well, and Shawn, go ahead. Steve had asked you what your take on this.
Well, I was just asking. Yeah, I'm looking at this bottle and like, so what's your take on what you brought with you tonight?
I'm not going to steal Nate's tasting notes.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
I already forgot.
It
so I
tastes
might.
like no. I'm just excited to be able to share with everyone. Just fortunate for the opportunity, like I said, but it's good. It's I will say, like in wine, they have legs.
Yeah,
Mhm.
This thing has legs for days.
Oh, yeah.
gotta like that.
It's
I'm so
unreal.
What really shocks me is that if this truly is just a 4-year product, the color on this,
Yeah.
because this
So you would
is
think they would-
so dark.
Charred, right? You'd have a higher char to get more darkness to it, right?
Well, I mean, so typically a lot of your but a lot of your color is also good, from the age of it.
No, I know that. I know that. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, so yeah, they may be doing like a level 4
Yeah,
char on this in order to try and get that darker color a little bit faster, because the more you char it, that char is going to be deeper into the wood.
yeah.
So, it doesn't have to age as long to get as dark a color.
See, this has got to be on the list. Got to head back down to Louisville maybe this spring, summer, or whatever if we can for a long weekend. Shawn, you come with us.
Okay. I'll go.
Do it around March 19th.
Yeah, you got hotel points, right?
Sure.
Okay, cool. You've been traveling more.
I'll talk to my boys over at Pittsburgh Jet. Maybe they can charter us a jet down there
Steve, you
for us.
missed that
Oh, what'd you say?
I said, are we going to make the trip around March 19th?
No. No. Shit, no. What? No. Too much work's going into that already.
I know.
Smoking 10 event 2022. It's back.
All right. I can't.
March
I
19th.
don't want to say anymore. Nate, give
Nope.
them.
Yo,
your taste.
I want to hear what you have,
Okay.
like the legs for days.
All right. I
You
like the
talked
legs.
about
And
that.
okay. So when I first
You're
took
a
a
leg
sip,
man. I got it.
yes. When
Thank you for wearing pants.
I'm wearing pants today, that's good. I always wear shorts, but today I wear pants for these guys. They're freaking out a little bit. So,
In fact, they're unbuttoned.
they're sweatpants. All right. They're not buttoned unless you want me to. So I would say the first thing I got off, and I'm not just the smokiness is right off the bat.
Mhm.
And it kind of reminded me of, is it Johnny Walker Blue Label?
So peaty smoky.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got that like right. I'm like this, the smell, not as much like on the nose, but the first taste was like, oh my God, there's smoke. And I love that taste. It's very, it's got that wood smoke taste. You can really smell what they've almost like you realize what they've
Jeez.
burnt the barrel with, and how they burn it. It just brings that all out. So I do like that. And I will say, I want to say viscosity, but that's your word. And it's got very
It's an English word.
You're allowed to use that
that's
word
not
too.
Okay,
you
I
can't
know.
I don't have a
Trademark
trademark.
viscosity.
but it does, man. I mean, you could
Yeah.
probably start your car with it if you wanted to.
Maybe
Well, anything over 80 proof burns quite well.
So
it's expensive. Tank of gas. And that's saying something these days.
I
At
don't,
this
I, don't,
point.
I don't know. Give it another year. This
Yeah, no
might be
shit.
cheaper to run
Yeah.
the car on.
yeah.
God.
So I'll give it at that. I'm that's, I mean, I'll talk more about it later, but that's kind of what I get off the bat. So
All right, Nate, get after it.
So-
You want to go out? Yeah.
I'm refraining.
So for me, I like, before we went live, Steve, you had mentioned that smokiness, and the way that smokiness comes across the palate for me, I think it's coming from the 4-year age on it. Like I
Could
don't know.
be.
I think if they were to age this a little bit longer, it might take some of that smokiness out of it.
Yeah.
Just the way that note comes across with this whiskey, I feel like it's coming across from that 4-year instead of being an older whiskey.
Yeah.
But you had brought up that smokiness, like even on the nose, like the nose is kind of like a rich campfire type of nose to it.
It
for
does.
me.
And I had a little, and this is not what you said, a little bit like brown sugar.
exactly. Yeah,
I
Oh,
had a
yeah.
little bit of brown
Yes.
sugar first sip.
Oh,
Now that's gone away a little bit for me because it's gotten a little with the Plasencia 149. It's that's why I wanted to do what we talked about
yes, good
is
call.
try it. And I will say, and I don't know, again, having a full pour on its own, if that would have tapered off. But that first one, it was very like a sugary maple brown sugar.
and that's what makes me think because
So I say, please say no before it comes out.
It's what was making me
Jesus.
think that second barrel would be a toasted barrel because
Won't do it.
typically the toasted barrels are going to bring a little bit more vanilla and not as much caramel.
Yes.
But that first sip, the way the smokiness and the sweetness of it came across, what I said was it was like a smoked candied bacon.
Thank you, guys.
okay. Now we can move forward. We've been
Oh
waiting
my
for
God!
this.
Everyone can exhale and relax. Like that was it. Like, whew. It's a lot of buildup.
All right. Well, that's the show.
Thanks for bringing the bottle. They can't hear you flick me off, Nate, on there. So please say.
That's all right. That's a gift to our viewers.
Please say that. Tune in Wednesdays to see the sign language.
Oh, that's what you guys need. A sign language person in the corner.
No.
That'd be perfect. There'd be a lot of.
Steve, what do you think?
Well, So I kind of already said the brown sugar. I agree with a lot of the notes. I mean, clearly called double oak. You are going to get that woody, the smokiness, I think, from that. I think it all goes hand in hand with what we've been talking about. And Tim, you say Tim Dodge says damn bad connection. Try reloading it because I've got a good. We all are following along on ours, and it's a good feed on the broadcast, not just on our going out there.
Close it out.
So catch the podcast later. Just close it out and try it again, unless you do have a bad connection wherever you're at. I think Sean Anderson needs to turn up his brightness. He says dark at the table again tonight. Sean, there's a brightness feature on whatever device you're on. you may want to try that. I don't think that we got a lot of lights going on here. Anyways, I think it all goes hand in hand. We're talking about the viscosity. We're talking about the double oak. This process of giving it. You're talking about the candied bacon. I'm saying brown sugar. It's the candied side of it, I think, is what you're saying, Nate, is probably between the thick viscosity, between the brown sugar, between, you think about candied bacon, you do that sugary brown sugar, the little bit of maple, like it's got a little bit of all of that in this. And I think that thickness gives it a little bit more of that appeal or feel when it comes to that. It's very, very enjoyable. It's not a huge,
better, Ray? Sorry.
It's not a huge heat, or as you guys call it, the Kentucky hug. It doesn't have. It's more up top a little bit, but it does have a nice warmth to it. I feel like it has a nice, again, that mouth feel. It's just very nice to sip on. I don't think this is something, again, being at the proof, being the overall experience. This is not a hot day drink to me. This is not one of those whiskeys. Like there's plenty like weeded bourbons out there that I think I'd rather have on a nice like summer day.
This is good for me.
You bring this out, I'm good. I like it. So if Sean, you brought this over to the house, we're doing a cookout, I'm like, yeah, absolutely, I'm gonna have a glass. But I'd rather have it on a fall day. On a day like today, it's almost felt like fall. I know it's in the 30s now, it's in the 40s here in Columbus, but it does just really has an enjoyable just experience. I mean, it's very good.
Well, and you're bringing up kind of that sweetness. So even though I said they don't release the mash bill, it does say on the back label of the bottle, strictly sweet mash.
Yeah.
So, so it may have a pretty decent corn content, but according to their website, like all they use is corn, rye, and barley.
Yeah, it's pretty typical, right? I mean, so maybe it's the process. Yeah.
They've got a 26-foot column still that they use. We've been like when we went to Old Forester, I think that was 40 foot.
Yeah,
which is one of the tallest column stills I've seen.
Yeah.
No, it's definitely a good product. And do you wish that this was something that was available in Ohio?
Yeah.
Even if it was at that price tag?
Yeah, because then I have the option if I want to just drop more money than I should on a bottle. You know what I mean? if I already, which I typically, I say this jokingly because I mean, it's a thing. I've seen people, but I don't recall a time I walked into a liquor store with a buzz on. It's kind of like going to a grocery store with like hungry. Yeah. Before dinner, you go to the grocery store, you're just like buying everything. It's like, I feel like if this was available at $134 or whatever it is, and I walked in after like hanging out with like, hey, we need another bottle. I'm like, all right, I'm good. I've only had 2, 3, whatever.
Let's get something special.
Go over there and I'm like, you know what? I haven't had this in a while. I'm gonna blow these guys away. And then like driving back, like, fuck, I should have just bought like 2 bottles for like $60. Like,
yeah,
between the 2 of them.
Yeah.
But it is very good. I know Ray out there who listens every week, and Sean's out there. Ray always says, price shouldn't play a factor. It does. 100 and above. Now you're talking for the common person. I think that's not bad. We talk about the price. If you are only sipping on it like occasionally or once a week or something like that, for you, a $130 bottle is something that you may be able to justify because that's going to last you. You'll have that bottle for a year or so.
Yeah.
For us that, sip on a nightcap or, do stuff like this, or like Shawn's bringing it over right now. And it's before we're like, hey, what do you want to do? You want to like save some? He's like, nah, it's for sharing. Like if it gets killed, it gets killed. That's an expensive bottle. I mean, it is, but it is nice to do as a gift. I think it's a great gift bottle.
It's because I love you guys.
Well, it's also because you didn't pay $134.
I still would have given it to
Bring
you,
that up.
mother.
I mean,
You
geez.
son of
Well, no,
Got a lot of nerve talking to me that way.
I'm kind of glad that this bottle's not available in Ohio.
Why?
Because then I might be
broke.
tempted to buy it more often. Than
Way
I
out of
should.
your price range.
I tell you, guys.
Not that you can't afford it.
I've spent $100 on
I know you
bottles
have.
that were in Ohio,
I know you
but
have.
no, I mean, this is the kind of bottle that I think would be worth, like, if you're going to Louisville for a trip,
Absolutely.
like, and you're hitting up multiple distilleries and stuff, like this. If it was available in Ohio, I think it would kind of take away from that the specialness of that bottle. Like, there's something special about going to the distillery
Yeah.
only to be able to pick up the bottle.
Oh, absolutely.
It makes
I
that
agree.
it makes that trip kind of worth
And
it, and you actually plan around it instead of just on a whim.
I wondered too if this bottle worse here would be like the Eagle Rares of the world would be hard to get, but maybe the price being so high it wouldn't be as bad. Or what do you guys think?
So according to Jim Johnson, who really enjoys going down to Peerless, like, this is readily available at the distillery.
This one is not all of like the single barrels and stuff that he's brought back. I don't think they have. What's up with
Do they
Nate's
sell it-
mic?
Do they sell it in?
I don't know what's going on.
Do they sell it in like across over in Kentucky? You would think like all the stores.
I can check their website real quick while you guys want to talk about the cigar, but yeah, I do believe it may be available in.
I gotta get sorry guys, and excuse me. I gotta give a quick shout out to the girls I work with because they're very excited. They're tuning in on YouTube. and
Well,
stuff.
see, and I just flicked off the guys commenting about my bald head, and then you're doing something nice. That's
Well, it's give and take. It's just yin and yang or whatever.
like an
Anyway,
angel devil thing.
okay, you're the devil on the angel. That's fine. Cassie, Diana, Emily, Andrea, Kelly, and I know I'm missing Rachel.
Don't forget anyone.
I know all those are my girls. I work with them. They're amazing people, not just for work, but just good people in general. So, got to give you guys all a shout. Thanks for letting me
They're
be a
tuning in
part
on
of your team.
YouTube, huh?
Yeah, because they're not all friends. Not all of them aren't friends with me on Facebook, or
Nice.
they don't have an account or whatever. So I just make sure they had some way of seeing it. So, just giving you guys all
Do they have
love.
any questions, any comments we didn't know?
So far, just a hi. But I'm on our Slack thing too. So if you want to ask any questions, feel free, and I'll
I don't
get
even know
you.
what that means. but-
It's a
Oh.
app thing that we talk. It's like WhatsApp or all that shit. This is a little bit better.
Okay.
But yeah. These girls are cracking me up though.
Let's see if I got a live chat here. If I can see anyone on YouTube. Anyways, oh hi Shawn,
Yeah, have some Diana.
hi Diana.
Oh my God, Diana.
We got
what's that
Dario
about?
on here. So
Apparently, this is available in Kentucky, Tennessee, some places in Indiana. So, not just at the distillery.
I just checked in. What's going on here? I'm trying to look at this as well. Trying to keep up with this. Swipe right. Is Ray on a dating app? What's going on here? No.
Just look at the
All right.
ticker at the bottom.
Yeah, got it on the screen for you as far as that. So I think you want to talk about the cigar here. You have more on the Peerless. I agree. I mean, this is a very nice bottle. I have been impressed with everything I've had from Peerless so far. I'm a fan. I think it's the price is the only deterrent for me. Again, you talk about. Here's what I'll say to Ray before you say anything about the price should not be a factor as much. Not knowing much about this, not knowing the 4 year, and I'd love to know a bit more about that. Where is it 4 years and then another couple years, like the double oak process, or is
How
it
much
total
in the
of 4?
first barrel? How much in the finished barrel?
But, you know, when you're going 130, that's a lot for a bottle these days. But $100, you know, if you're in the Angel's Rye, you know, that you know, that's something that based on flavor and uniqueness of it, I think I'd be willing to pay more than your average $50 price for sure. That's what I'll say about any of the Peerless experiences that I've had this week. I'm not a fan of the double oaked as much as the regular. So again, I mean,
Teach their own.
teach their own.
I think it's definitely a bottle you could like if you see it like, hey, Steve, I'm getting this. You want to split it? And that'd be a little more cost.
That'd be cool. Yeah, that'd be neat. Yeah, for sure.
Then you're paying
actually a bad connection. That's
then you're paying $70 for a half.
Right.
But I mean, at least you're not paying $134. So
exactly. So let's go to the Plasencia. We've talked about the Plasencia family before. It does look like our signal is a little weak now. I think who was it? Whoever it was,
Tim.
Maybe Tim Dodge, maybe jinxed us, maybe he's hacking in or something like that. We'll see. Looks like it just got better. Thanks, Tim.
Tim logged off. I think it helped.
No, Tim, no,
I'm
Tim.
kidding, Tim.
He didn't mean that.
I'm totally
if
kidding.
He did, he's not invited back. The Plasencia. So we've had some other stuff on from Plasencia before. This is going to be their newest addition to their line. Plasencia is based out of Honduras and Nicaragua family. They've been around for a long time. In fact, the 149 on this Cosecha means harvest, and this is of all the tobacco is from the 149th harvest, which would have been in 2014. Okay, and this one's all from Honduras, and there's 3 regions of Honduras that this is from that makes this up. I was surprised looking at it. Not saying you can't have a dark wrapper, but smoking this for the first time and looking at the cigar. I love Plasencia's Nicaraguan tobacco. A lot of the Plasencia name that actually has that. They make a lot of stuff out of their Honduran factory. A lot for like Alec Bradley would be an example of that. But like the Plasencia 146 Cosecha, that was from their 146, obviously. It was 2011, 2012 harvest. And that one was all Criollo tobacco, but it was from Honduran and Nicaraguan origin. Where a lot of the other stuff like the Alma Fuerte, the Fuego, the Reserva, like that's all Nicaraguan to my knowledge. So it's cool to see them actually coming out with more of their Honduran stuff in their family line brand, their own brand, as opposed to what they're making for other people. So that was kind of cool. So you've got, like I said, a dark wrapper leaf from this one. But other than that, it's a 3 region blend, but it's all Honduran. Shawn, what do you think of this? Since you're the guest of honor, you've never had this before.
No, and it does. I've always loved Plasencia cigars, and it does have like that. Reminds me a little of BS Gold, and which I'm a huge fan of. But
this does,
yeah, a little bit.
How so?
Just a retrohale. I'm all about the retrohale, and the flavors kind of similar. It's a nice. It doesn't burn that much, and there's not that much pepper to it, but it goes. I think it goes really well with pairs well with the Peerless, just because it's one of those things. You take a hit of a cigar and then take a sip of the Peerless. It tastes one way, and you do it opposite way. It tastes another. But I think I took the cigar first, and then the sip second. And it really went really paired well. It just opened up a whole different new kind of line of flavors and stuff. So. Yeah, it's got the cigar though. I'll definitely buy this one again. It's you can't go wrong with Plasencia in my opinion. They've always got really good selections of cigars.
Nate, what do you think?
I enjoy the cigar. I think because I hear a lot of people talk about it with Honduran tobacco. They can usually pick it out pretty quickly just because it kind of has this dryness to it on the palate. And it doesn't necessarily come across as bold as say the Fuego or Fuerte lines.
Mm-hmm.
I think on the palate, like the flavor is more medium, but to what Shawn said, like there's so much spice on the retrohale. Like
there really is. Yeah.
I get more flavor and body on the retrohale than I do on the palate.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I get a lot of spice. Retrohale, obviously, there's the pepper, there's the spice to it. So it's a woodiness. It's not necessarily cedar.
No, yeah, it is
Like an oakiness.
Yeah,
because oak kind of comes across that really sharp dryness sometimes.
Yeah, it's got that a bit
together. Good with the.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that's going to be coming across there. Almost a little bit of coffee, I think, like kind of like that coffee bitterness, like on a black coffee.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
To me, it's like, again, I know you drink that, and you posted that before with the Black Rifle Company, but this is something that for sure it's like, for me, it's good coffee, but it might have been sitting on the burner a little long.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm talking about? It's starting to like a little sludge at the bottom.
Sure.
See, I like that.
That's the best part.
See, that's when I first started drinking coffee, I've told that story before, but I mean, now you pull into like, not a Speedway, it's like one of those gas stations that has coffee, but they're not known for coffee.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore no one really buys coffee there except for people that like
Maybe
go to truck stop, maybe,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Got a little bit of that, burnt side of things, that
Sludge.
bitter. Yeah. Yeah.
McDonald's coffee.
At the very end, you get a couple of coffee.
So
I'm sorry.
some of my friends are listening.
Moving on, Shawn, go ahead.
No. It's about the retrohale because the girls I work with prior wonder what the hell that means. If you want to explain that to them.
Yes. So with the retrohale, so with a cigar, for those, it's a good point because Charlie Creekmore says, I like the sludge on the bottom also. Yeah, absolutely. As I retrohale, I got a little bit of, whew. Give me a second. Smooth. It's a really smooth cigar. It's really nice. Define the retrohale for those of us that are perhaps not as educated in the cigar terminology. That's from Austin as well. So again, we have some loyal listeners, people from the community as well. Austin's been in the garage before. Love to have him on the show. So retrohale, so you don't typically inhale a cigar. It's more you draw it into the mouth. I always equate it when I'm teaching new customers or new smokers. It's almost like sucking on a straw. Because again, when you're sucking on a straw, if it goes down the wrong pipe, that means you inhaled as you're drinking whatever you're drinking out of a straw. You literally are sucking it into your mouth. So then think about that. The liquid, the soda or whatever you're drinking through a straw, now you've got it on your palate. It's in your mouth. And that's kind of where the smoke is. With a retrohale, you do that same thing, but there's a way to push the smoke. It takes a little bit of practice for a lot of people, but you push it through your up through your nasal cavity and out your nose. That's not the typical, like what you think of if you're not knowing how to do that. It's something that I would compare, again, something a lot of people are used to that terminology, but circular breathing for playing some wind instruments. There's a way you can do that, and I'm terrible at it. I've tried to do it with my didgeridoo, which is an instrument, Shawn.
No, we need to get, that didgeridoo. Oh, yeah.
There's a way.
He's got two. All right. Sorry. No, you should put that on the show sometime.
I got to practice.
All right. That would be cool.
And my neighbors over, and they're like, what is that in the corner of your kitchen?
Of course, you have to widen the lens a little bit.
My wife's got one and bagpipes.
Yeah. So anyways, getting back to that. So you really are actually taking what's the air in your mouth, which would be the smoke at this point, and actually pushing it through your nasal cavity to push that out. You can actually breathe while you're doing it as well. Mm-hmm. Your flute, Steve. So with that, your sense of smell is very, very powerful. So using not only your taste buds and your palate and your mouth, everything you get from that, you're also getting a lot of sense from your nasal cavity, bringing in a fuller experience of what's coming through the smoke from the tobacco. Yep. I mean, that's really my best explanation, I think, for a retrohale, is that it's something that it really brings. It adds another layer to it that you wouldn't have. It's not the same thing, obviously, as breathing in through your nose, because when you do that, it's passing through your nasal cavity. You get a hint of it, but now it's in your lungs, and it's you're breathing in that kind of secondhand smoke, as opposed to getting that fresh and you're pushing it out, almost like getting that fresh air side of it, where you're not going into your lungs. And
it does I think it brings out a completely different flavor from just, like you said, smoking it. It's different. I think Ray said it earlier, but anyway, I think it really, really brings out just a whole different kind of I don't know, like some flavors
My,
to it.
my wife keeps texting me about, because she was in the band, so she keeps texting me about circular breathing and
Yeah.
all that stuff. I'm like, why are you texting me? Like, comment on the show.
Yeah,
Quit
this
texting
is
me.
open for everyone, especially if you want to talk about Nate. That's fine. If Jess, if you want to comment more on the feed, we'll try to get your comments up on the screen as well, no matter if they're about Retro Hail or
This pink shirt,
Nate
whatever.
Hale, either Retro Hale
Yeah.
or Nate Hale.
oh god,
Ah,
is that just that came to you right there,
Mhm.
or is that something you've used before
Or
or
you've
been
been waiting
holding
to use
on
it for,
to?
like-
Everyone keeps talking about this retro guy.
Keep waiting to say it. I can't wait. I'm going to
Retro
say it now.
Hale?
Nate Hale.
Fuck that guy.
Yeah.
I got Nate Hale over here. Have you ever Nate Hale the cigar?
I think in Nate Hale is you retro, but you got to close
Oh,
one
no.
nostril and then blow it out the other.
I like my login for work is Inhale.
Is it? I get it. Is that also your password for
And then I always make.
Yeah.
I always
what
make,
bank are you with?
Yeah, good to know.
at work. No, and then I always made a joke. If I ever got divorced, my ex-wife would be Exhale. So
Damn, you've been.
Jess, as I said, if you'd like to comment on the feed, I think now more than ever, people would like to hear from you.
She said I'm cheesy.
Really?
You made lasagna. What do you? I mean, come on.
So, Dan, I'm camp jokes from American Pie. Yeah. Jesus. Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one. We'll see where this night goes. I like this. And when I ask for reviews and everything like that, I am going to encourage you guys because it's so easy to do. But let's steer clear of comparing this to the rest of the Plasencia line.
Fair.
Nate.
Fair. Oh, yeah.
Everyone, myself
Yeah,
included,
yeah,
because
yeah,
I was
yeah.
just about to do it. And I'm like, that's not fair. This is a completely different product.
Yeah. I mean,
All Honduran tobacco. Let's talk about it objectively.
Yeah, it's nice.
This is the box press. This is a 5x52. It's called the La Vega. Yeah, La Vega 5x52. The 149, as I'm breathing in the smoke, I'm holding it literally underneath. It's box pressed. There's 3 sizes that I know about. This is the 5x52. There's a 4.5x60 box press. There's also a 6x52, more of a Toro.
Mm-hmm.
They don't typically use your typical sizes like Toro. They do on some of them. But this one, again, called the La Vega, more of a Robusto, 5x52, classic Robusto size. And again, this is a box press, kind of a softer box press, if you guys would agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I do like it's kind of round on the edges.
Yeah.
More, I like that more than just like straight,
It's not a hard box press.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't
It doesn't have those real crisp lines,
rigid edges.
like
I'm-
90-degree lines.
Yeah. So I do like the construction of it. Again, it's like a chocolate bar as far as the color of it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's just an absolute gorgeous. For those that aren't as
Hershey's
familiar,
almond,
what's that?
Caramel. It's like the Hershey's almond or caramel
Yeah.
color.
With that copper on it as well.
Got the copper, white.
Black,
Again, it says
yeah.
149 Cosecha. At the bottom, the footband I took off, but I kept this just so you guys, we don't have a picture of it. I think you posted a picture. It says Cosecha Privada. Privada, again, for a lot of you guys that are newer into the cigar industry, this is something that there was one company that I think that really just coined the Liga Privada.
Mhm.
Liga Privada number 9 came out, putting that out there. We get asked for the Liga Privada. Privada. Again, this is a something that it is a private harvest.
Yeah, that's what Privada means.
Yeah. So that's
Oh,
where we're at. Liga's blend.
Okay.
So Liga blend is a private blend.
Did
Number
you
9.
did you send one of these to Ray? Because he thinks you may have included one of these in the bag.
I don't think I did. Let me look at the picture while you guys continue to talk.
And again, to new viewers, we have a listener that chimes in every week. He's from Vietnam, so
Well, he lives in Vietnam.
he lives in Vietnam.
You know what? I did, Ray.
It's
I
morning
did.
time.
I don't know if you're smoking something already, but you, I sent 3 of the 149s. I think it was a 6x52. Some of the last that we had in stock. So that is part of your package that was out there. So great to have you. If you're smoking something this morning, or if you haven't started smoking and you're going to light something up for the morning, this would be the one to do. And if you want to chime in here, even if it is in part 2, I'd love to hear what you have to think about this one.
Saturday when Shawn came into the shop and we were talking about getting ready for tonight's episode, I was trying to figure out, since he was there in the shop, like what could we smoke, and I actually came up with recommending this one.
Yeah.
Because I knew this was a special bottle, and Plasencia, you know, with their price points and stuff and their construction and how good their tobacco is, to me, Plasencia is kind of a special brand.
Yeah.
You know, it's a little bit higher end brand, but I didn't want to go, you know, like the price of the Fuertes, which are, you know, over $20. And this one being the newest Plasencia that the Tinderbox at Easton's gotten in, like I thought, you know, this might be something nice to feature because special cigar, special bottle,
Yeah.
why not?
And it coordinates color wise.
It actually
Most
does.
importantly,
Yeah, got to coordinate.
for those interior designers out there. Ray says he doesn't do morning smoke. Ray, so this is a great time to also mention for those listening in right now.
Start.
This is this is something that, you know, this podcast has brought us into the Bourbon and BS community page as well. We got about 1,500 or so members. Ray is one of them. If you guys smoke this or anything else you see on the podcast, Ray, right now you have this available. So when you do light one up, put it on the page, which I know he normally would, to kind of what you think of it as well. What to say about it? I think that'd be cool.
And apparently his wife loves the BS Gold, which is coming from Plasencia.
She enjoyed that as well. Absolutely.
So did he tell you what he wanted, or did you just sit there and be like, I'm just
he did, and this is something that, you know, through the Tinderbox at Easton, where, you know, Nate and I work, this is something that, so I put together a package. He had a couple that he had before. Being in Vietnam, he has limited selection, but he can get his hands on a lot of like nicer cigars. So he had asked for a couple, Gurkha Ghost, which is one of my favorite Gurkhas, which I don't, you know, say what you will about Gurkha. He had a couple others on there that we just didn't have anymore, or different sizes. So I had sent him, this is the package I had sent him. So this is something that we can always do for you at Tinderbox at Easton, one of the sponsors where, you know, again, we work. Sent him Laranja Reserva, Laranja Azulejo, Undercrown 10-year, Mil Diaz, Aroa First 20 years, Plasencia 149, Alec Bradley Magic Toast, BS Gold and Silver, Gurkha Ghost, Aging Room Nicaragua, and Alec Bradley Tempest Nicaragua.
Damn, that's
so medium to full body.
That's a hell of a lineup.
Like, and that's something nice. This is old school stuff. I mean, I'm not trying to necessarily plug what we do there, but this is something when I say, you know, in the beginning of the podcast, you guys are listening, you know, hey, the Tinderbox at Easton can mail something out. It's not like Amazon. It's not like some of the big boys. You're going to get it as soon as you order online. This is something that we can curate for you, knowing what you like. Mm-hmm. And they're not all going to be like your favorite. You might, if you order just like a sampler, you order something like that, there might be something. I sent him 3 of each of those.
Okay.
So it was a health 30 some cigars, 35, 36 cigars. This is something that hopefully he enjoys everything, but that's something we can work with. Anyone out there, you know, listens to the podcast, part of the community, you know, Sean Anderson, you know, he's done it before as well. This is Ray says last night's Magic Toast was great. Got some leather espresso and quite a bit of spice. That's something, you know, Sean says, oh, hang on. I've let Steve just put my packages together. I don't know if I'll hang on is a good or bad thing, but I hope it's a good thing. These are something that, you know, again, it's nice working. This is like what I think of when you think about like high-end retail stores.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's something that like when Nordstrom, you go to like, if you're like a customer that you go into a store like Louis Vuitton or something like that, and you go in and like, oh, you like, hey, by the way, we got this matching wallet. And hey, you know, when I was looking at shoes at Nordstrom years ago, I had an experience. It was a fantastic experience with a guy at the, you know, that was the assistant manager of the shoe department, which is that if anyone shops at Nordstrom, I don't do it all that often, but for stuff like that, it was great. He had been transferred down to the Cincinnati store. I emailed him. He's like, hey, I'm down in Cincy now, but tell me what you're looking for. And I told him, he's like, I can send you 3 pairs. The one you looked at online, and I'll give you 2 other options. And with that, he's like, you know, you pay for all 3 of them, but whatever you don't want, all 3 of them or 2 of them, just take them back to the Nordstrom by you. But that way, you know, since, you know, you can just try that stuff on, it's just really nice to have that personal touch.
Well, like,
this is something that I think that is missing in an industry like the cigar world, where all you're putting that situation where you're always doing research, you're always doing the, you know, it's that's the feel of the brick and mortar where, you know, we have people that come into the Tinderbox, for example, and we know what they've enjoyed and all that stuff. We've had conversations like, anything new? No, not really. All right, well, give me something. Like we had a guy in today, he picked out a handful and he's like, just give me 5 other ones. 5 different ones? Yeah, just pick out 5 other ones. And this is a fun way to learn, and you can kind of trust the people that know your palate. It's cool.
I know you have that one customer that comes in each December, specifically asked for you, that wants you to curate an advent calendar of cigars.
Yeah. His wife, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
So she is a customer. So it's for her husband, which is more of a regular customer.
Yeah. But, because of your experience and knowing what they like to smoke and knowing, and your knowledge of the product, you're able to curate a sampler, if you will, of cigars that person should enjoy. Not everyone's going to be a home run, but, typically since that person's palate, everything should be at least a double.
Yeah.
Everything should be at least an extra base hit.
Especially if I'm sending you 3. Pass the bottle there. I'm going to have a second glass here. I think this is a good time to, and sorry for those watching live. It seems like the internet is going in and out a little bit. We haven't lost it completely. Those listening on the audio, love having you guys listen to the audio. But every Wednesday we stream live. I don't know if he's going to listen, but this morning I was at the gym and I was working out next to, he ended up talking to, I had my headphones in. Nice gentleman, 62-year-old Marine. And he was I was doing shoulder workout. He's like, how many exercises? Just normal, like conversation, real nice. And then he started talking about like trying to get back into shape. He just got back in the gym a little bit. He talking about his I think it was his son or son-in-law. And he's like, have you ever like tried to just get as ripped and lean as you can? I said, I did probably about like 7 years ago or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Really so I was down to like 185. And then I started like joking. I'm like, yeah, the problem is, I just, I have dedication. It's like, and plus, like drink too much bourbon, and all that stuff. He's like, I like whiskey. Starts naming off some that he likes. And so I didn't even say anything at first, but then right before I moved away from that area, and I was like, hey, I don't know if you're bored. Like, I do a podcast every Wednesday. Sure enough, he whips out his phone. What is it? All that stuff. So I hope he's listening tonight, or he comes back and listens to it. It's always good to share it. And for those out there, it's not just for us. Obviously, you guys tune in for a reason. If you guys like it, enjoy the show. Hopefully, you guys pay that fee at least and share it with people. That's going to be a way to expand that community.
Yeah.
So, rating time. For those, again, listening for the first time, we do something at the end of part 1 where we rate the whiskey, we rate the cigar, and we rate the pairing. So there's 3 out of 10 being the best. So we're going to rate the whiskey, then we'll rate the cigar and the pairing. So, Shawn being the guest of honor.
Sure.
And thank you again for this Peerless Double Oak.
Of course.
What are your ratings tonight?
So I'll start with the Peerless. I'm going to give it a 9. I think it's an excellent whiskey, and it's God, I'm already starting to get buzzed off of it too. Jesus.
It is 107 proof.
Okay, well there you go.
107.9.
And it is pushing 9 o'clock at night.
Okay, man, you guys are just geeking out too much about the 9s. Okay. So yeah, I'll give it the 9 for the Peerless. It gets better as they keep going too. I think the first few sips were a little strong, but not too bad. But now that I'm getting used to it, it's getting really smooth. Love the flavors. And with the cigar, I'm actually digging that too. I'm going to give that a 9 as well, because the flavors on the palate are good, but the retrohale, like I said earlier, just brings out so many more flavors. And I'm definitely getting next time in the shop and get one of those again, because they're really good. The pairing, I'll probably give a 9.5, because I think they really complement each other especially if you take a hit of the cigar first and take a sip, it just brings out more flavor on both ends of the spectrum. And
is there a particular flavor that you think it brings out more? Does it bring out more spice or more sweetness?
Probably more sweetness, a little more brown sugar for me.
I agree.
Which is great. I'm not ready to cook some bacon, kind of stir the bacon in there, and I think it'd be a good combo too.
No,
Maybe good on pancakes too. I don't know. So so together pairing 9.5. It's probably the highest I've ever rated any of these. Usually I'm not as Russian judgy as Nate over here, but this is one of those that I'm really glad we got the bottle, and shout out to Clayton, who may be watching, to give me this opportunity to have it, and all the girls back in Pittsburgh. You guys are the best, and yeah, it's awesome.
Something about those Pittsburgh girls out there, you know.
They are awesome. They are great people. Not just to work with, just overall, they're really good people. All of them are.
All right, Nate, what do you got?
So on the whiskey, like Shawn, I'm gonna give the whiskey a 9. The flavor on it is very enjoyable. Being 107.9 proof, it doesn't have that Kentucky hug in your chest that you alluded to, Steve. It just stays kind of in your palate or in your throat.
Yeah.
Just especially that first sip with that smokiness, the sweetness.
Yeah.
Like that first sip was absolutely amazing. The nose is great on it. So I give it a 9, and that's without taking the price into consideration. Just on its own, it's a really enjoyable whiskey.
Good.
The cigar, I'm going to give the cigar an 8. It's got a good flavor. My only dislike about the cigar is, and I think it's because of the Honduran tobacco, it does kind of dry out the palate a little bit.
Yeah.
It has that very sharp oakiness to it that kind of dries the palate. But it's got fantastic flavor, especially on the retrohale. Not getting all that much spice on the palate the first time I smoked it. I was not expecting the level of spice on the retrohale that I got. And we've had a few cigars in the past that have done that, where you don't taste the spice, but you definitely get the spice in the nose.
You feel it, yeah.
Yeah. And then on the pairing, I'm going to go a little bit opposite of Shawn. I'm an 8.5 on the pairing.
Okay.
So I was 9 on whiskey, 8 on cigar, 8.5 on the pairing, because, and this goes to what we started before we went live. You had us take a sip of the whiskey,
right?
And that first sip, we were all like, "Oh my gosh, this is absolutely amazing!" And then as we got into the cigar, the whiskey just didn't hit the same.
Right.
We weren't getting the same flavor notes out of the whiskey while smoking the cigar that we did.
Smoke, actually.
Yeah, that we did from the very beginning. I do agree with Shawn. Going cigar then whiskey brings out, I don't necessarily think it brings out more sweetness. It just brings back that sweetness that you got from the whiskey.
Sure.
Going the other way, you get a little bit more of that spice coming back from the whiskey, which normally the whiskey didn't have. But going whiskey cigar, like, it brings out that spice on your palate. I think that's more because of the proof of the whiskey.
Yeah,
sure.
But I mean, I think it's a good pairing. There's one cigar that I wish I brought with me to try with this one. It's a little bit lighter than this, but just the way that cigar smokes, when I've had that cigar with other whiskeys, every time I go back to that whiskey after smoking that cigar, that whiskey was like taking the first sip over again.
What's that?
That was the Fiat Lux that we featured with Miguel
a
few months ago. So I would be very excited.
Fiat Lux, don't you?
I do. Gosh, it was a great cigar, and it's got a lot of good ratings. I even asked the owner of the tinderbox to bring in a box, and I'm going to buy the shit out of it.
It's aggressive.
Just because when we smoke that, and I've smoked several of them since then, if I'm smoking that cigar with the whiskey, every time I go back to the whiskey after smoking that cigar, it's like the first sip. And as much as we liked the first sip of this whiskey before we started smoking the cigar, like, I kind of want to drink this with that cigar and see if that actually does ring true.
Well, after a trip, or when you head down to Louisville next time, bring a Fiat Lux at least with you.
I'll bring.
You're going to buy the shit out of. For me, so just to comment for those that are just tuning in, we got a little, I kind of like it. No, I don't. I'm just justifying this, rationalizing the fact that the feed's a little blurry now. I don't know. You need to switch internet providers, but kind of gives it that garage feel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's retro,
Word.
Speaking of retro, a little retro. Hopefully the signal gets better in part 2. All those kids get off those gaming systems, those Nintendos and such in the neighborhood.
Ataris.
Yeah. Shawn, get up on the roof and fix my satellite, will you?
I will. I just don't want to hurt my back if I do it, though.
All right. For me, I'm kind of in the same ballpark with you guys. Peerless, I'm a huge fan of what they're putting out. This is no exception. I'm going to give the whiskey a 9. I really enjoy this. I will, and this will lead into my pairing, but I really thought sipping on this. I've had a little bit before. You know, again, Jim Johnson, I donated to the podcast for the bottle coming up, and he's also been a part of the community page, and he posts a lot. Also part of, I think it's the Licking County bourbon page as well, that he's a kind of smaller page, but you know, again, something that he started with some of the people that he has out there. I think it's Licking County. I think it's it. Anyways, 9. I think this is great. I think those flavors initially, right off the bat, the first sip was a treat.
Yep.
It's still very enjoyable. Obviously, a 9 on this, as it was. We smoked the cigar with it. Speaking of the cigar, I'm going to give the cigar an 8.5. I'll give it an 8.5 officially. I really enjoy this cigar, and I am one that is more partial to maybe some more Nicaraguan tobacco. If you have to pick between the big 3, other than Cuba, Nicaraguan, Honduran, Dominican, probably Honduran. I don't know. It's a toss up between some of the Honduran puros, Dominican puros, Nicaraguan puros. Definitely, that's my top all the time, no matter what factory, what fields. Just in general, that seems to be what I enjoy typically more than anything else. That being said, this being a Honduran puro, it's one of my favorites.
Yes, I agree.
So that is, you agree it's one of your favorites? You agree that it's one of my favorites?
I agree that this is one of the best Honduran
Just
puros.
Just fucking with you. I think
They do this a lot.
Well, we do work together.
Yes, you do.
Once a week.
Yeah, that's it right now. Twice a week if you include this.
Yeah.
So yeah, 8.5 on that. Pairing, I'm at an 8.5 again. I'll do an 8.5 on the pairing. I enjoyed, that's what I was kind of leading into. I enjoyed the first sip of the whiskey on its own. To what Shawn was kind of saying, I think it did change it a little bit. I think that this is something that I really enjoyed. The whiskey on its own, I've enjoyed the cigar on its own. Together, it's still good, very good, but it's taken away some of the sweetness and that sugariness, that brown sugar aspect. It kind of dulled it down, I think, for me. So it kind of made the whiskey take a slight step down on what I'm enjoying from the whiskey. So it didn't take it away completely, but it altered it in a way that I still enjoy the pairing. But I think I enjoy the two of them separately just a bit more.
Yeah.
I agree.
I think with as high as a proof it is, usually you get more of that hug, but not really. I mean, it's really smooth.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, I and a lot of their, because I did look at this when I was looking up information on this bottle. A lot of the batches that they do of this come across around that 107 mark. That 107 to 108 mark is typically what this is going to come at.
I got to tell you, when you're talking about the legs, just last note here, when I swirl it around, I've got a rocks glass. You have a rocks glass. You have a Glencairn. When I swirl it around, it almost, the legs are thick enough.
It hangs.
The color of the whiskey is on the side of the glass.
Yes.
Swirl that around like kind of quickly.
Yeah.
And then stop. It's still where you were swirling it. It has that color is still on the side of the glass until it fades away.
Yeah.
That's the type of viscosity and the legs on this thing. It's not just that you lean it one way and you're like, oh yeah, it's kind of trickling down. No, you swirl this around.
It's so
and
oily.
Stop. It's still got the color of the whiskey on the side of the glass.
Yeah.
That's a first for me. I've not seen that before. Maybe I wasn't looking, but that is a first for me on that. That's impressive or dangerous. I don't know.
A little bit thicker.
Because as you're drinking that, I'm assuming like, inside,
it's just gonna coat.
They had that scope down your esophagus that you're like, what's that? Oh, it's kind of just trickling down into you.
I'm shit in your esophagus.
All
What
right.
is
Cool.
Well, any thicker.
Is that good, Doc?
Any thicker, this would be motor oil.
I don't know. If it goes away, yeah, you should be fine, I think. It's just planting the seeds on your esophagus. Thank you to Tinderbox at Easton for the Plasencia 149 Cosecha. Tinderbox at Easton in Columbus. We talked about that. I love the feedback we had from like Shawn and Ray and a couple other people out there, as far as the curating, as far as getting a palate. This is nice. If you don't have a a brick and mortar that is local to you. And if you do, I would encourage you to find one that actually will work with you on developing, even if you're a seasoned cigar smoker. Shop like Tinderbox at Easton, I know, can do that for you. Again, they're not always going to be your top cigar, your new favorite every time, but this is a way to enjoy things that you may not have had or things that you might want to revisit. So this is something that, Tinderbox at Easton can do for you, whether in the Columbus area or if you are doing it from afar and shipping it. And again, as far as Ray, halfway around the world.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that he smoked it, he
So
liked
cool.
the Magic Toast. He didn't ask for that. Jane liked the BS Gold. That has been out there before. They have smoked it before. I'm interested to see on the Bourbon and BS community page on Facebook what Ray or Jane think of the Plasencia 149. He's got 3 of them to smoke. So if you want to share it with your wife, do that, Ray. If not, enjoy them, all 3 of them. Yeah. It's up to you entirely.
Speaking as a frequent customer Tinderbox, it is very nice to go in there, and there's a lot of times I get my regular cigars, but I always also have these guys surprise me with whatever they think would be good. Never been disappointed.
Well, recently you came in, and because you had a gift card,
yes,
you wanted to get some cigars that you normally wouldn't buy.
Correct.
And I recommended a $20 stick to you.
Yes, you did.
And oh my God, did you love it? Which makes me feel good.
Yes,
I know I'm.
Yeah, you guys know your
I'm good
stuff.
at one job at least.
And it's so nice to have that. It's nice to be able to have that, that option or that opportunity to come into a place where these guys are so well versed and have so much knowledge to just let them surprise you. And you can't do that in a lot of stores like that. So to be able to have that option is just such a great opportunity, and you learn more from it. You venture outside what you're normally used to, and it just creates a bigger selection to choose from next time you go in.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that's been missing, especially over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
I will say that you need to get back out, or at least if you are remote, work on that, those relationships to get that type of specialization. Also, Altadis USA, we're going to be lighting up the Romeo Julieta, the Reserva Real Nicaragua. It's blended by AJ, working with Rafael on that. That's that blue band Romeo Julieta.
Regular Reserve Real has the red band, the Nicaragua has the blue.
It's a line extension, has nothing to do with the Reserva Real initial project. So just so you guys know on that. Same like the Cosecha, is completely different, 146, 149. Also, BS Cigar Company, Gold and Silver. Gold is made by Plasencia. We've been talking about them tonight. So that's made by Plasencia, and I hope you guys enjoy that's another thing that again, Tinderbox can send out to you if you're not local, if you guys want to try that out. The silver is by Eric Espinosa at the La Zona factory. So we appreciate him doing all of that good stuff for us as well. And let me put up here patreon.com and also the Buy Jack. Just a quick plug at the end. Patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast. Go to that website. You guys can contribute on a monthly basis. If you want to do a one-time donation, or if you want to do a one-time bottle buy, tell us what you're looking for. And I'm not saying like it can be a $20 thing towards a bottle. It can be, hey, get your hands on a Peerless. I want to see this bottle. I'm sending you $135 Venmo. It's for this. And Nate and I will get that bottle with that money. So yeah, we'll do our best to get all that stuff done for you. Also, with the Patreon page, you will get a special website for the buyjack.com/something else. We'll tell you that what it is with a code to get a discount on all the swag, like the Pour One More, Light Up Another. We'll figure this out together. The hoodies will be up shortly. Hopefully, there'll be a new Bourbon and BS hoodie that's going to be up there that I'm excited about. The initial color, if you will, but it's going to be a special hoodie. Hopefully, that'll be up here in the next week or two.
Is that the one with the barrel head logo? Yeah.
So if you look up in your top right, the Bourbon and BS barrel head logo is going to be on that hoodie. So thank you, Nate, thank you, Vanna White.
You got it.
Wait, are you pointing to Nate and then Nate's pointing to that?
Look at Nate.
Oh my
and
God.
then look up there.
But thank you guys very much. For everyone that's not a Patreon, if you don't want to do that, you just want to grab some swag. Shawn needs a new shirt.
Yes, I do.
Buyjack.com. That's byjack.com/Bourbon and BS. The new ones, though, that was the original prototype. And so this one's now printed on there. And you can see from Nate's, he's washed that several times. I've washed the green one. You still see it. Let me talk to you about your detergent. You wash it on hot there?
Cold water.
Dish
Cold
soap?
water.
Putting some like dial bar soap down in there. Keep that moisturizer, you know.
Yeah.
But no, it's Dove.
It's comfortable.
You should use
Yeah.
Dove. Yeah. Guys, thank you very much. Happy Whiskey Wednesday. Stay tuned for part 2. We're going to be talking to Shawn about what's been going on, and we're going to talk about a bit about mental health. And again, I don't want to deter anyone from listening because, again, we're not experts, but this is just a conversation about that. And then also we'll try to get some fun stuff in there.
It's not going to be a Debbie Downer situation. It's all good stuff, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, and if you guys are listening right now, quick intermission. If you're listening on the audio, click over to part 2, and you'll hear what we're going to be talking about there, and looking forward to that. Guys, cheers. Happy Whiskey Wednesday.
Happy Whiskey Wednesday.
Thanks to our sponsors. Thanks to our listeners. Cheers.
Use the restroom real quick.
Absolutely.
So Shawn was talking about, how nice it is to go to a shop that, has that level of knowledge to pick out cigars for them.
Yeah, he's talking to you.
I used to.
Oh, no, you weren't. I thought you were talking to.
No, I'm talking to them.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought you were answering the audience.
So the
Next. Mental health, checking in on mental health and Shawn's story.
the very first cigar shop I worked at, the owner and the manager, they were cigarette smokers.
Okay.
Like they rarely smoked cigars. Typically, the only time they would smoke cigars is if a rep came in and gave them free samples.
Say that again.
So the first shop I ever worked at, it was the manager and the owner were cigarette smokers.
Okay.
The only time I would ever see them smoking a cigar was like if a rep came in and visited the shop and left samples, smoke those. Because the manager only got so much of a discount, so he wasn't spending his money on cigars. He was just smoking cigarettes all day long. And then the owner wasn't going to smoke out of his inventory.
Here's a comment there from Greg. They were posers. they knew what they liked to smoke. Not quite as passionate about the industry.
Jess texted me that every time talking about the whiskey that you said brown sugar, she was just thinking Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones.
See, I think of the first Bad Boys. The scene where they walk into the
We
Miami.
want to borrow some brown sugar.
There's too much bass in your voice. Too much bass in your voice. Hi, we're your new neighbors. We're wondering if we can borrow some brown sugar. Check out Bad Boys 2, and then whatever the third one was. Good. It's
Bad
a good
Boys for
throwback.
Life.
You seen Bad Boys, Shawn?
All of them.
All 3 of them?
Mm-hmm.
That's nice.
I've not seen the third one.
It's good. It's a good throwback. It's not good. It's good.
All right.
Does that make, what I mean?
It's entertaining.
You know what is good? While we're in the intermission real quick, if you guys are fans of those types of like farther down the road, enjoying a movie, The Buster.
See,
Afterlife.
that
Yeah.
looks awesome.
It's very good. It's not like a remake, it's a continuation.
Yeah, that's so cool.
They do it so well.
Yeah.
So
The
well.
trailer looked awesome.
Yeah, it's good. Definitely recommend it.
With this
Tony
cigar,
is going nuts right now.
with this
All
cigar, when the tinderbox first got the 149 Cosecha in, I was actually kind of surprised by the sizes because you mentioned the one's a 4.5 by 60.
Yeah.
So it's like a nub. I was actually kind of surprised that they would make something more like a nub and not what a lot of people go for nowadays with like the 660.
Yeah.
That's being such a popular
Yeah.
size. But then again, like Plasencia with their stuff, like even their 660s, they're hexagonal press.
Yeah.
They're not the traditional 660s.
Right. The 6 though.
Yeah. They don't, and they other than those, they typically don't do a whole lot of 60s. They'll get up.
It was an interesting play, and I think it worked out.
Like the 146, they'll do that 58 ring gauge, kind of like what you do on the BS.
That's right.
But they don't quite go the 60 route on all their blends. But with the 149, I was actually surprised to see a 4.5 by 60.
Yeah.
Like that was just and especially being a box press.
Yeah.
It reminded me back to when Sam Lucia had a cigar called the Frog Splash. It was like a 4x70 box press.
No, oh yeah.
It was just a very wide cigar given its length.
Yeah. You guys definitely check that out. The Plasencia, the new one.
For sure.
All right. So now, for the first time, for those that can't see this, I do want to mention that we have an all-female audience, and they are all drinking red wine. This is so. If you're in the
God
club
help
area,
us all.
So I'm gonna make sure that the volume stays a little low on the other half of the garage here. No. Enjoy yourselves. This is a first. Using some wine glasses that Shawn actually gifted me.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
They are pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Only the best.
You never know what's going to happen in the garage on Bourbon and BS podcast.
Only the best for Steve.
Tallie says hi to you ladies, even though you don't know him.
Hello, ladies. Andrea Hill says, "My people." I don't know if she's talking about us or
because it's ladies in the garage.
So this is all right.
How you doing?
Oh, Greg Sanson says hello.
Hello.
A lot of O's on that hello. All right. Everyone, calm down here.
They're gonna be like, turn the camera around. We're gonna look at them.
Yeah. Enough about you guys. All right. So you guys ready for part 2?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right. Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 204. Wow. Part 2.
Mm-hmm.
We are approaching 4 years in.
It's crazy.
Our 4th anniversary.
Yeah. 4 more weeks.
That's
4
awesome.
more weeks. So
Should have balloons in the backdrop for that.
You can do balloons, blue
Stingers.
animals.
Yeah.
Get a clown in here.
Yep.
You got a thing with clowns?
We've had people dressed as Santa in here before.
Yeah.
Not really.
All right.
As long as they're not following me in the sewer.
Right. No sewer. So clown and balloons, like just a movie. It.
I know.
All right. Guys, thank you very much for tuning in. I want to thank our sponsors before we dive into this here. We are going to be talking about checking in. What did I say? Checking in on mental health here. Checking in on mental health. Not experts. For those listening to part 2, we are just going to have a conversation about this.
Yep.
We're going to talk to Shawn, a little bit of an interview at first, and then we'll see where the conversation goes. Again, this is something this is a very important topic. I will bring up. I've looked up a few things. This actually, when you talked about it, there was a new article about seasonal depression, which we've talked about before, and it's just these reoccurring things that we were seeing. So we'll talk about that a little bit here. But I do want to thank. So for part 2, also part 1 is Tinderbox at Easton. They provided the Plasencia 149 Cosecha, which we talked about. If you're listening to the audio only, click back to part 1 if you want to learn about the cigars and the whiskey. We also had a Peerless Double Oak that Shawn brought us with. Again, but it was a very positive, reviewed pairing. Just the
all
2
nines.
all across.
Yeah.
Well, 9s, 8s, 8.5.
No,
but
on the
whiskey,
On the
nines,
whiskey
yeah.
was straight 9s.
nothing less than an 8 on the cigar.
Which rarely
and the
happens.
pairing. So thank you very much, Tinderbox at Easton. Also, Altadis USA. I'm going to be lighting up shortly. I'm still working on the Plasencia, but the Romeo Julieta, the Reserva Real Nicaragua, blended by AJ Fernandez and Rafael from Altadis. Thank you, Josh Bentley. Shout out to you. Definitely keep this podcast going. Josh is going to be on in, I think, 2-3 weeks, something like that. I got to look. It's
Beginning of February?
First Wednesday of February.
Yeah.
We're going to be hopefully smoking some new stuff from Altadis.
The last time he was on in December, we had something new.
Some great new stuff coming on. Really excited about it. There's a new Monte Cristo. There's a new Upman coming out. They've got some stuff landing in late January and February that I'm super excited about. Plasencia and AJ have their hands on it.
And speaking of, congratulations to Monte Cristo. The 1935 anniversary, which is my now all-time favorite cigar, got ranked number 2 in Cigar Aficionado top 25 of 2021. So congratulations to them. And
which we
AJ,
did review on the podcast.
Yeah,
I
absolutely love that cigar. It's one of our highest rated cigars on the podcast.
Absolutely.
I'll tell you what, when Josh comes on, it's like Christmas, man.
Really is.
Like really, he should be wearing a hat, Santa hat or something. I don't know.
Yeah, he usually
Have you
wears a
seen
nice
the
hat.
suit he wears?
He's the most dapper dude on this show for sure.
Yeah. when he had that jacket with the dragons and stuff on it.
dude.
Like,
Yeah, it's nice.
Got some sick stuff, man. I'm gonna dress like him when I grow
All
up.
right. Couple of rooms he would roll. Also, BS Cigar Company Gold is made by Plasencia. We talked about that on the first part. Silver is Espinosa. Thank you to BS Cigar Company for supporting us. And also patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast to support the show. Also get a nice discount code to buyjack.com/Bourbon and BS. These are where you can get the swag items. This is something that we have all that swag items like the Pour One More, Light Up Another. We'll figure this out together in several colors. Got a new charity one coming out. For those just now tuning in, I will flash you the green one that's going to be going towards childhood cancer research.
Oh, cool.
I like
St.
that we're all
Baldrick's.
wearing podcast shirts.
Absolutely.
Yep.
A lot of swag out there.
Word.
Sean's got the OG.
OG.
Oh, yeah. It
So,
says
yeah.
what there says, but you just can't read it.
If you guys want to contribute one time, and this is a shameless plug, but Venmo at Bourbon and BS. You can buy us a bottle, tell us what you want. We'll do our best to get it. If you just want to do a one-time donation, I know that Victoria's done a one-time donation through twice through the Patreon.
That was before we had the Venmo set up.
So for full transparency, we set up the at Bourbon and BS. That is a commercial account. So there's still going to be taxes taken out of that, and we're doing it legit. We're not trying to get away with anything, just so you guys know. That's something that Nate, I don't think I talked to you about. So if you donate that, it just won't be the Patreon fees coming out of it. It's just the taxes side of it. So that's the one I encourage you guys to do, a one-time donation. Shannon did that. Shannon Chapman did that not too long ago, which I really appreciate. That keeps this thing going. Again, the heaters, the lights, everything else we do here, it just helps us do that without taking it out of our pocket.
And all the audio to be able to download and upload to all the platforms that we uploaded onto. That's
Everything.
That's not free. So yeah, so that's what all that Patreon money goes towards.
All right. Business aside, let's get into part 2. Thanks for tuning in, guys. So Shawn, you brought up this topic.
Yeah.
And again, mental health is a hot topic right now.
Mhm.
It has been for years. I think that it was overlooked over a period of time the last couple of years.
Mhm.
Really?
Well, it was overlooked to a point that, people talked about it, but as far as the media side of it is that this was almost an afterthought while we were going through the COVID-19 growing period. And we're still growing. We're still learning.
It had
all
been
stuff.
mentioned,
So
but it wasn't until like later on where all of a sudden
now it's just boom,
like-
boom, 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 boom.
like initially there were individuals or smaller companies that were commenting on it when it was first happening, but it wasn't until like a year or 2 years into it that now, the big media companies and big players and all this have actually started talking about it.
Yeah, I think you really need to look at sometimes the independent media. Some of the podcasts I listen to, they actually do. I mean, they refer to themselves as independent media because they're putting out podcasts. That's the new wave of stuff that it's not. They may have their own agendas, right, with whatever company they're with or whatever they're trying to do, their sponsors, whatever, but it's not to the level of the mass media. I'll put it like that. So Shawn, we had Shawn on initially, a year and a half ago?
Yeah.
What was the episode,
It was
Shawn?
2 years.
You know this
Not
one.
like 93 or something.
It was the 90s.
AJ Kazmierzak was on with them.
I'll pull it up while you
Love
talk
that.
about this. But,
Love that
so
dude.
when Shawn was on the first time, and I encourage everyone to go back there, and I will check this out really quickly here.
I can do that if you want to do the
that
interview
mess?
with him.
No, hang on. I got it right now. Real quick. It was,
93? 92?
you were 96.2.
Oh, I was close. It's in the 90s.
Yeah.
That was in December of 2019.
Yeah. So it was, you were 96 or 102. You and Shannon, I just shared it with someone that 96, I think you were on before Shannon.
Yeah.
So it was
Yeah.
96. So
Yep.
96.1, we did a cigar and whiskey, but the 96.2 was called It Isn't Over. And that was your topic. Now we're doing checking in on mental health. So Shawn, you went through a lot of health things, obviously, in the past. Guys, check out episode 92, 96, excuse me. But looking at it now, over the last couple of years, I know just like everyone else, you've been through a lot of things with the family, with COVID, with the job.
Yep.
I want to say the last time maybe you were on the podcast, but at some point, because Shawn's typically in the garage in the audience, not drinking wine typically. So it's a different audience every week in the garage. Cheers, ladies. Cheers. But you went from Amazon, you went from a career in aviation to Amazon.
Yep.
Back to aviation.
Yep.
There's so much more that is around those shifts.
Yeah.
So kind of bring us up to speed on the last year or so.
Yeah. So I've been in aviation, specifically like passenger charter, private jets for over 20 years. Been in aviation, like just in general, for over 30. Been doing it since 1991 and kind of moved from different companies to different companies here and there. A couple companies, I stayed there with, 15 years with one company, over 10 years with another. They were getting kind of toxic. So I moved on to a couple smaller companies, and about the beginning of before I went to Amazon, we were doing well until COVID hit. And then when COVID hit, as you all know, a lot of companies took some hits. And one of the biggest ones was private aviation, because there was a stall just because
you couldn't fly.
Yeah, you couldn't go anywhere. Even if you could get on a private jet, other places you're going to go to, everything's shut down anyway. So, or back then,
state by state, it was other countries. Obviously.
Oh yeah. And yeah, don't even start on other countries. That's another fucking headache to deal with. But, so as COVID hit, we basically went out of business and I got furloughed. And I was at a point with just my career. I was like, I'm going to try something different. So I sat down with my wife and we talked about our budget and, what if I just go somewhere different for a little while, and, decided to go to Amazon, and it still work financially. We did a little refinance of the house, and
you talked about that on the show.
Yeah. Saved a lot of money in the process by refinancing and cutting back costs, and still were able to save some money in the process. So it was nice to kind of get away. And I enjoyed it. I mean, I got in a lot of pretty good shape too. I was walking 20 miles a day when I was at Amazon. So it definitely kept me in shape.
You looked great and you still look great.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Steve. No, it's just now with, being back at a desk again, I just got to be a little more active, which I'm trying to be. So that helps, but,
we'll get into that.
Yeah.
Mental health.
Yeah. So,
how old are you?
51.
Cause Greg was asking, like, what ages did all these changes happen? And it was within the last 2 years.
Yeah. And
so you were late 40s, early 50s when all these changes.
Yeah. And, I'll get into more of the, counseling and mental health here in a minute, but with the years that we're talking about, though, I was okay with leaving aviation because it was getting to a point where I was getting burnt out, and again, it was kind of in a toxic a relationship with the companies I was with, a lot of micromanaging, a lot of just second guessing. Things were never good enough, and that took a toll on me. And then going to Amazon was like a freaking breath of fresh air, because I didn't have to worry about that shit. It was just more dealing with packages. And, I remember going into work and people were bitching about Amazon. I'm like, you guys have no idea how good you guys have it. I mean, it was a relief, but after over a year, I think I worked almost a year there. And as that was happening, a friend of mine, Dan, he reached out to me and said, hey, we're teaming with another company. I mean, we should come in and kind of do like a sales part of things. And by that time I was pretty far in Amazon where I was like, all right, I'm ready to step back into things. And things were starting to pick back up. Probably in the spring of this past year, things really started booming in the aviation industry because people were getting vaccinated. Things were starting to open up again, and people felt more comfortable to fly. And it was like insane, the amount of travel there was. And when I was in Amazon at the time, I'm like, sucks to be them, because I know how insane logistically it can be when you start having multiple trips and just it's nonstop and you put the pilots through hell and back. But I finally, took my time when I decided to work with, I left Amazon to work with this company now, and to make sure, like, listen, I've dealt with things in the past where I've had some really bad, relationships with my bosses and my CEOs, and I just don't want to go down that path again. And after talking to my friend Dan, who I've known for years and known in the industry, he was like, this is a little different. I don't think you're going to get that as much. So, I started that back in the beginning of September. And I know they're listening, and I'm not just saying this because they're listening. I've never been happier in all the years I've been in aviation than to be with the company I'm with now.
Right.
It's like a family. But it was a transition for me because there were times when I would mess up in my old jobs where I would have CEOs just on my ass screaming at me and just telling me it was never good enough. And then when I started this new job, I would make some similar mistakes, and I started like almost was triggered from it because I was like feeling like they're going to scream at me again and I'm going to get
just from habit.
Yeah. And
that's what you're used to.
It took probably 4 or 5 times for my bosses to sit me down and say, like, you need to calm the hell down. Like, we're not these people. You know, if you fuck up, you fuck up. All we can do is learn from it and move forward. And I'm just like, really? You're not going to like,
you're not
me?
crashing the plane.
Yeah. You're not going to berate me for this and call me out in front of everyone. And it's like this. So it was a process, and it got to the point where I was becoming so worked up over some simple mistake that my resting heart rate was like 112.
Oof.
And like my stress level was like through the roof. And my wife, being a counselor, you know, she's been helping me with some of it. But when you're married to a counselor, you can't really sit down and talk to them because they're more of a vested interest in you. So you have to talk to somebody who doesn't know you at all. So you have a very
third party.
Yeah. So they
there's got to be a third party there.
So recently I've been seeing a counselor, you know, just every week and just kind of starting all over. And I've done it before. And on a quick, just side note, I've dealt with depression over the years from all the medical things I've been through. And I've gone to counselors for many years for other reasons, some being from the companies I used to work with, other just, you know, depression. Just it's life. Shit happens, and things in your life always don't go the way, a lot of times don't go the way you want them to. And how do you process it? Do you keep it in and not talk about it? And like for a lot of the times I would sit there and like just disassociate with my family. I'd go lock myself in a room and watch TV, or just wouldn't want to like get involved with anybody because I didn't know how to really handle it.
Yeah.
Right. So now that I'm seeing this counselor now, it's nice to kind of, he brought back some things that I've learned from in the past, but a lot of it is staying present and not to make a mountain out of a molehill, which is obviously doing with this new company. And it's been helping. Like even the other day I screwed up, made a mistake, and, you know, I was called out on it, but it was like, hey, let's, you know, we did it. Don't worry about it. Let's move on. And for the first time in, I think, my life, the other day, I was able to be like, all right, no big deal. I didn't get triggered from it. I didn't react from it. I was just like, all right, I'll learn that from the next time and I'll move forward. And
do you think the difference in how your higher ups reacted to your mistakes was more the size of the company difference or a culture difference, or like, why do you feel there was a difference in how they reacted?
I think the company I was with for 10 years was just brutal on me. It was bad. And I never
how
like being micromanaged by a CEO, standing over my desk and questioning everything I do. And no matter how hard I worked, and I would not stop until I was finished with my job. There's nights I was working 14, 16 hours a day.
Yeah.
And it was never good enough.
Right.
And I get this company now where I'm doing a good job, and they're like, man, that was awesome. Good job. And I'm like, at first I was taken aback. I couldn't take the compliment. I couldn't figure out how to handle that. And now it's to a point where, you know, they give me a lot of, you know, positive reinforcement. And then if you make a mistake, let's learn from it and let's move on. But I felt like I was trapped for so long, and I felt like I could never get out of it. I was like, I didn't know there was like other opportunities out there where there's people that offer me a job that would treat me like a human being and a fair person.
Right.
And now it's been like, you know, it's been a process over these few months, but like, I feel more confident in what I do. If I make a mistake, I don't lose my shit over it. And like, there's a couple of times I've gotten off work, and Teresa's like, you're in big trouble. You need to figure this shit out.
So you bring up, as you call her, T, right?
T. Yeah.
And for those listening, again, as someone that is like, now it's back, but sorry about the video quality. This is a constant struggle for us for whatever reason where we're located. But, you know, she brings up culture difference.
That's probably answering my question to Shawn.
So culture difference, right? So I do want to bring in a YouTube comment also, which we appreciate. I don't know if you listen much, but love seeing you on here. First question was, how's the Peerless Double Barrel compared to the other Double Oaks? So this is the Double Oak. Does it still have that funky crafty note? If you listen to part one, you might be tuning in now, but part one, I I don't get a funky note. It got highly rated in the first part. So, but I do like on part 2, not to breeze by that, but so the Bourbon Basement says, glad to hear you made the healthy change. I was in a similar situation working commercial account management for one of the big 3 tire manufacturers. Toxic corporations kill you if it's profitable. Now, again, I don't want to dog on big corporations. There are some that are very healthy, in my opinion, whether you're a small, medium, or large corporation, depending on what cog you are in the big picture, the machine. There are ways to do it, right? This is a way to. There are good and bad ways, right? But I always bring in, just like anything else, it's always the people. As soon as you introduce people to it, sometimes they don't want you to succeed beyond where you're at, so that they don't lose you. There's a lot of factors in there, but that's the most common thing that I've seen with that. You're doing a good job, but the person above you is happy you're doing a good job. They're may or may not be doing a good job, but you're making them do a good job. So it's like there are these like typical corporate type of bullshit things you go through. So sometimes also to the Urban Basement's comment, it's just toxic throughout the whole organization, right? It's all about the money, and it doesn't matter if you have. There's got to be some sort of a medium ground there as far as it's business, but it's the people that make the business. It's all about if it's all about the business, they might succeed, but you're going to lose people. If it's all about the people, the business might fail. If it's about the business, the greater goal, but it's also about the people. There's got to be a good medium ground, right? There's got to be this type of thing where if you want to grow, you got to grow together. In my opinion, that's my opinion.
And sometimes the culture that might be like, if you're taking a big corporation like where I work, which has more than 10,000 employees, the type of culture you see at the upper levels may not necessarily be the exact same culture you get within your own work group, because you have a much smaller pool. The specific division of the company I work for, this massive corporation that has more than 10,000 employees, Fortune 200 company, my division of the company is like less than 300 people.
Okay.
So we're a small cog within a larger machine, but then even then, when you get down to my department, you're talking about like 10 people.
Yeah.
With 2 managers. So there can be different cultures within organization. Just because my manager treats me a certain way doesn't necessarily mean that's how the CEO or the other executives at the corporate level.
There's a leadership level that needs to be there. I want to bring up something before that. Question for Shawn on what you're talking about. So Charlie says, Shawn, what capacity did you work in aviation primarily? I might have missed that point or that part. I apologize. Are you former military? No, you're not former military, but what capacity in the aviation industry?
I do kind of a twofold thing. Over the years, I've been a flight dispatcher, which is dealing with the operational side of things with when a trip is booked. It's setting everything up, dealing with the logistics of it. If there's the one company I used to work for had 30 aircraft. So, at any given time in a day, you're setting up trips for 30 some aircraft the next day and a few days out. And at the same time, you're monitoring the flights the day that you're working to make sure those are going off without a hitch. So it's a lot of communication, dealing with pilots, making sure they're getting to where they need to go to. And then it's also has a lot to do with knowing the regulations with the FAA, knowing how to read the weather and, what forecasts are and what, all these different charts are. And I think the other big thing is, knowing that like pilots are only allowed certain hours in a 24-hour period they can fly.
Yeah.
And then, and they have a duty day that can't exceed 14 hours. So when you're dealing with trips, like as a dispatcher, when a trip's booked, you got to make sure you can see ahead of time and say, okay, are we not busting any regs? Okay, good. Now let's look forward. We're going to an airport that's not that as busy of an airport, and they have this thing called NOTAMs, which is notice to airmen, which they give you information about the airport. Well, what if one of the runways closes due to construction? Well, they have too short. The kind of thing as a dispatcher, you need to be looking out for it. Make sure that we're not going to go somewhere with a closed runway. Just as an example. Then you deal with customs and international handling. That's another whole thing that I've learned through over the years, and dealing with handling, dealing with U.S. customs, outbound, inbound, can be a pain in the ass. But over the years, I've gotten familiar with it, and I've got a lot of experience with that. What I've done before and what I'm doing now, which I like a lot more, is selling charter. So we have aircraft. We have like 6 aircraft. Sorry, guys, if you're hearing it, I said that wrong. I know we have more aircraft coming, but a lot of it's okay. I'm looking on our board at what we have available, and any empty legs that, like, if we do a trip from New York to Miami and we're paid back to New York. All right, we're going to keep the plane there and try to sell the back north so we can kind of double dip on a trip, right? So it's a lot of
come back.
Yeah,
you
so
don't want a dead leg.
So right, so it's all
the
about
trucking industry, which I was in before the moving industry, or before the cigar industry was the moving industry.
Yeah,
and it's like if you go somewhere, you come back empty, you're either taking a big loss,
exactly,
or you have to charge more for that.
It's like when you talk about moving companies, you think about some people that may rent a moving truck and do a one-way trip.
Correct.
Which over the last couple of years, we've seen U-Haul have an issue with that, where people that live in certain states were moving out of that state, and it was a one-way trip, and now that state no longer has enough trucks to even be able to do the local stuff.
Yeah, if your planes are sitting somewhere else, you can't do anything.
So that's where I'm constantly doing every day now, is like seeing what we have on our schedule, and we get together as a group and kind of look at, all right, these next few days out, we've got these legs to sell. And so I'm out there reaching out to brokers and other customers and selling our availability, basically.
So I don't bring up some comments here. What does the consumer see? What's the consumer just as a perspective to a lot of this behind the scenes stuff that you're doing? Like, obviously you just rattle off a lot of things. I can relate to some of it, but a lot of the other stuff, not being in the industry,
right? But
knowing what it is when, like, so I'll dumb it down big.
Okay.
You want a cigar, not being insulting to the industry that I'm in now, same thing. You want a cigar on the shelf. Someone walks into a cigar shop, right? Whatever job you're in, whatever job you do, realtors, it's like, I want to buy a house. So the inventory's down. I know, but this is my budget. I want to buy a house.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that simple.
Right.
There's so much that goes into it. So on your side of it, what's you deal with like private flight.
Yeah.
So they expect, especially the money they're paying, they expect, what do you mean? I don't want to be delayed. I want to get from here to here.
Yep.
And I have to leave this date at this time and be here at this date and this time.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like,
well,
your industry wants to say, no problem.
Yes.
You're the no problem translated into everything you just said.
Right.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. We'll get you. Hey, Shawn, we got this person that needs to go here to here on this date, this time, to this date and this time. Make it happen.
Well, so if it's the way the industry's been right now, it's just booming. There's still like just insane amount of charter out there. And I deal mostly with brokers. So brokers kind of have an idea of what's going on. So there's a lot of times I tell people we don't have anything available. I mean, 9 times out of 10 throughout the day, there's
you literally say no.
Yeah.
Okay.
And because brokers are used to that now. What you could sell on a private jet from New York to Miami a few years ago, you could probably sell it for $8,000. Now you're selling it for 15 because there's such a high demand.
There's same thing with the containers, but your industry is not in the news. The only thing like flight in the news is the fact, like the normal everyday consumer flight cancellations.
Yeah.
And you're looking at this like, stop talking about. Do you look at that? Like, you equate the two?
Yeah, well, it's usually like
that's separate.
If there's flight cancellations, that's good for the private jet industry, because people that are on the fence that either want to fly private or commercial, if the commercial flights aren't there, they're going to look for private. Now, they're also starting to learn too, even the consumer themselves, not even the brokers, they know that it's kind of a hit and miss scenario depending on what days of the week and what days of the month there are. If everyone, it's called a migration. So if everyone's going from New York to Florida, it's going to be hard to try to find a true one-way.
Side note, I love that you said that.
So what's that?
New York to Florida.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's relevant for the last 2 years.
I mean, it's either New York to Florida, New York to the islands, or New York to the mountains, like Aspen or Eagle or West Coast. So, but there's other ones, but that's kind of the primarily ones that we're like looking at. But but the way the demand there is, I think everyone's kind of understanding. Like, let's say that somebody wants to go tomorrow from New York down to Miami, and I was like, and they want to leave at 8 a.m. Well, I got a plane, I can get there, but I can't leave till noon, and I can save you this much more money. And they're a lot more lenient now with, okay, we'll make that work.
There's now an acceptance with a lot of this, where before all of the COVID, I'll coin it now. It will be coined. The COVID years. I mean, that's where we're at. You guys want to argue that?
No.
No, that's 2020, 2021, 2022. Hopefully it stops there. The COVID years in any history book out there, there's a lot more leniency now than there was before, because it's out there. Like, supply chain's bad. Container ships are tough. They're more expensive. Flights are being canceled daily.
Well, we still see that issue in the cigar industry.
Same thing.
Do you think people now that supply chain issues have been out there so long, like
same
people
thing
in the industry start understanding a little bit more?
Same thing, maybe in the cigar industry. To your industry, Shawn, there are still. Do you ever get that call? Because we get that in the cigar industry. It's like, why don't you have that? And you're like, well, it's getting less now because, again, going back to the mass media, the mass media has actually promoted the fact that things are going on.
Yeah.
Now, again, 2 years later, that this is now part of the narrative. I'm not using narrative in a negative way. This is just fact. Like, this is part of the story. There was 6 months even ago that it was like, well, why don't you have that? And you're like, so I don't know if you've heard, but there's a worldwide pandemic that has shut down a lot of things.
Yep.
And when you shut down the world, there is a trickle effect of things that will happen from this. The flight, and again, with your caliber of clients,
they're starting to, the passengers themselves, the customers themselves are starting to understand. Well, I think back when everything started booming back in the spring of last year, there was a huge uptick of just everyone wanting to get the hell out of their house. So people were flying and paying for whatever. And I'm sure at the beginning of that, people were being told no, and they couldn't fathom that.
They don't understand.
Yeah. And so now,
especially if they got the money to private their own private jet.
And so now
they're not used to being told no.
And right now, how we do it too is we don't sell anything any more than 3 to 5 days out. That way we keep planes open for potential. Like, we manage some of our jets, so the owners may have to use a plane, or if there's a retail client that'll call in, that we can get them directly with us. We're going to, book a trip 3 or 4, 2 or 3 weeks out.
What was it before?
Usually quote whatever you could. Back then it was like, oh, you got a trip in 3 weeks? Sure, I'll quote it. Now it's like, well, we kind of hold off because we don't want to put ourselves in a situation where we book something 3 weeks out and with a broker, and then all of a sudden the owner needs a plane. Now we got to go back to the broker and say, hey, we can't give you that plane anymore because the owner needs it. We avoid that by only selling 3 to 4 days out. Keeps us. We do turn a lot of things down because of just our stipulation, and they understand that. But there's retail clients that we'll make an exception for. I had a guy call in. He needs to take his family to Salt Lake City from Pittsburgh. And, I'm talking to my boss, and we're like, with those guys, let's make it work, because these are people that could be a return customer that we could go directly with them. And anytime you can direct client, great. So we make exceptions for them. But when it's a broker and they're shopping everybody and their brother for the same freaking routing, it's like, we can't help you, but there's probably 40 other operators that can probably help you. Now, there's times where they're desperate, they're pleading, and they're doing whatever they can to make it work, but there's just nothing we can do. We don't have anything available. So
I equate that to the realty, the realtor.
And you know what?
Real estate industry is much the same, right?
And
I got a client that wants to buy a new house. You're like, yeah, I also have this many clients that want the same thing. It's not that simple anymore.
No. And you know what's even crazier is the purchasing of jets. It's the same thing as a real estate right now. Everybody wants a plane.
Yeah.
Because it's a hot item. So, Clayton, my CEO, has been listening. Shawn, we have planes. I'm like, all right, man. Had a couple of whiskeys. Sorry, Clayton.
Clayton, that's my fault.
My bad, brother.
That's all I got.
Yeah, we got 8 planes, guys, just so you know. But we're trying to get more planes. Our fleet's going to grow. Well,
on YouTube.
It's the Slack thing. Yeah, he's on YouTube. Yeah, but we're commenting.
Shawn is doing a great job explaining private aviation.
Thank you, Clayton. Appreciate it.
Just to put it out there. I love a CEO. By the way, I love a CEO that uses LOL.
Oh, he's awesome.
Yeah,
this dude is.
Again, knowing Shawn as again enjoying our friendship and all that stuff, I can say that I've seen this growth and everything else, and the excitement about this. It's so cool to see a good person that was good at what he did, that was at wit's end with all this stuff.
And I finally
took a huge shift.
Yeah,
with Amazon.
Huge pickup.
And I remember when you told me that you're like, yeah, so I'm looking at doing this. And I was like, that's awesome. I also, as a friend, was like, do you want to do that again?
Yeah, I remember. I mean, there was a lot of conversations with you.
There's my
wife,
and more with your wife, obviously. But it's like, I have no horse in the race. But to see the transition has been phenomenal.
I mean, these guys are like family to me. I mean, I really do. I mean, it's been
in a short period of time.
Yeah, I never knew a company could exist with people that just really would do anything for each other at the drop of a hat, whether it's, just when I'm out there, it's just, I'm treated so great. And the fact that, all the people I'm working with right now are all listening in on this. They were so excited to hear this.
So much pressure.
But
welcome to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone.
Yeah, Pittsburgh Jet Center. It's Pittsburgh Jet, by the way. That's who I love. That's who I work with. Well, Clayton, you tell me. No,
live. No one's listening anyway.
We're getting it out there. I mean, I'm not afraid to tell you who I work for and who I absolutely adore as a company. And but
look at that outfit, by the way.
Wow, Nate, you need to walk in front of the. When you had your shirt pulled up a little high, that was even the best part. But so,
all right, let's
anyway,
let's transition. All right, so
what? I missed that.
All right. So real quick, let me just finish real quick.
Go ahead.
Because I just want to let those guys know I can't thank you enough for tuning in. They were being so excited all day to hear about this, and just to tune in, and it just means the world to me, because to me they're like family. I mean, they really are. And we have our goods and times, we have our bad times, but we stick through it and we work together, and that's why I'm so much happier. And my mental health is on a good thing, because I did get some counseling just to fine tune what I was dealing with from a past issue that was triggering me, to now where I feel so much more, in tune with my mind and my body, my soul, and whatever, that I can wake up every morning and go to work and be excited to make things happen and to work for people that are just amazing people.
Here's what's so impactful about that to me, just before we get into like Ray Cheshire, actually, it's like, are we still talking about mental health? That's the full circle part of it, is that you got to understand that sometimes when you're in that career, which you were in, you made a dramatic shift.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it be your career, your business life, your personal life, whatever it might be, your relationship, your friendship, whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what part 2 is about. And so I love having these people on. What's the company again? Pittsburgh
Jet Center.
Pittsburgh Jet Center. Maybe the first time that they've tuned into a whiskey and cigar podcast. But that's what's so fun about part 2, is that's when it comes into what happens a lot of times in a cigar shop, or if you're sipping whiskey with some friends. You talk about what you're drinking, smoking, you talk about all that stuff, and then the night goes on or the afternoon goes on, and you start talking about someone's issues or just life in general, all that stuff. You'd say, like, these are the faux pas things. You don't talk about politics, you don't talk about religion, you don't talk. The people long enough, it's going to come up.
Yeah,
it will. It's the fact that you can come back after having a conversation about that and get back to learning from each other.
Yep.
You don't always have to agree.
I think that's because the relationship.
That's what I'm saying. So that's where with Shawn expressing all this stuff, I love that, because it is very relevant to the mental health side of it. Mm-hmm. Is that you can be in a good career, great paycheck, great. You have even a forecast of being promoted and doing this. So many things,
mm-hmm.
But it's so easy to glance over or just breeze over the fact that while you're doing this aspect of your life, this aspect of your life is falling apart.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of the times you do this, it's not only about prioritizing or focusing on one thing, is that you're doing this for this reason, but the reason you're doing it for is sacrifice because you're doing that
Right.
for that. There's a balance there. And I love the fact that you made a choice to walk away
Mm-hmm. Best thing I ever
with
did.
your support. And you were fortunate enough that, Teresa, Molly, your family had your back doing that.
Yeah.
And you didn't just walk away and say, no, I'm not going to do it. You walked away and you're like, I'm going to bust my ass at a more or less blue collar job just to pay the bills.
And I loved it. I actually missed going.
You learn
there.
a lot.
Yeah. I missed the people that I worked with at Amazon. I missed the opportunities and the things I got to do there. It was so cool. I mean, don't worry, Clayton, I'm not leaving, but I'm just saying I love having that part. And it really put life into perspective to step away and then come back and see with a fresh set of eyes.
Well, Clayton, I got you. I'll have him do some manual labor around my house if he wants to do that.
Well,
that's fine. I got some shit I need to do around the house. How you good at landscaping?
Oh yeah.
All right, so Clay, I got you on that part. Like we'll get the mental health now with the career. If he has this urge to just do manual labor, absolutely. I'm not going to pay you because I think you're doing well now. Again, you're doing well.
Mm-hmm.
I got some mulch beds in the spring. Shawn lives in the neighborhood, so
yeah, I live down the street, so it's kind of easy to swing by here and be a regular.
And also, do some mulch beds. No, the mental health side of it is Charlie says snow plowing. Yeah, no, agreed. All right, if anyone has a list for Shawn to do things at the podcast, which is also my house, I got some cobwebs and stuff up here in the basement.
I'll use the letter. I'll let you borrow. Sure.
All right. No, he's a good neighbor.
Sometimes making those career changes.
Greg says, "Don't give my work away." He's my good friend, and also he's done work at the house. He's a contractor.
Oh, Greg, don't worry about that.
No.
I'm gonna do a shitty job, and then I'll force you.
My toilet's leaking. Hey, Greg, what cigars do you like?
Yeah, I'll pay you in cigars. But no, with what Shawn's talking about, sometimes making those career changes, or if you were to jump from one company to other, sometimes what really helps start that process is having having support from the people in your own house. When I've made career changes in the past, I had the support of my wife. So while I may have been a little scared personally of making that change, because I had the support of my wife, I was less concerned about it. And that's actually come up again recently, where when I've had actually making a switch and doing something different because I wasn't happy where I was, part of me is scared of that change because, part of me kind of like my dad working for UPS for 34 years, whatever was going on, he just stuck with it. Part of me, I still have some of that ingrained in me as well. That's just ride with it, just stick with it. You don't necessarily
old school.
Yeah.
Not a thing anymore.
No.
Or less of a thing.
Yeah,
there's still something out
like
there.
Our parents' generation, they would get with a big company and they would work for that same company until they retired.
You bought a fridge and you would hold on to that refrigerator until it died.
I'm not talking about appliances. I'm talking about
same mentality. That's what I'm saying,
yes.
though. I remember my mom and dad's washing machine. When it went into the spin cycle, you would have thought a chopper was landing on the roof. And you're like,
was it working?
As a kid, you're like, oh, at first you're like, what's going on?
Am I in the video game Contra? What?
Oh, Contra is great. That's why I got a Nintendo. But side note, but same type of mentality. You bought you always hear that. And it's so funny. Even today, you hear that the older generation always looks back and like, well, we used to do this.
Yeah.
And you kids don't want to do that. My parents, dealt with that with their parents.
Mm-hmm.
We now deal with it. Like Shawn, you're the only parent on the panel tonight. You can probably still deal with that.
Mhm.
It's like, well, we bought things that like they don't make them like they used to.
Yeah.
The issue is that they do. The one thing they do now is that I think it to bring that in to you, Nate, is that you can buy a TV. You also can buy a warranty on it because it probably will break in the cigar industry. Buy a lighter. You can buy a nice lighter. You can buy a cheap lighter. If it has a warranty, get that lighter. Shit breaks. Relationships break. Careers break. But if you put a little bit of stock into the fact that you can repair it, you might actually learn from that. You might actually grow from it. You don't have to like just walk away because it breaks.
Yeah.
The disposable culture that we have is so strong right now.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and
Career is just the same way. I'm not happy. Someone said something wrong to me that's above me. I got to walk away. Ray comment. Go ahead.
Some people do that. Some people will make a career change based on something, quote unquote, as small as that. I'm one of those where it usually takes a little bit more than that for me to want to jump ship. For me, it has to do with the job itself.
Okay.
I'll put up with a lot of bullshit, but everyone has a breaking point.
Yeah.
To me, as scared as I may be sometimes in jumping ship and making a change, because I'm not one that necessarily likes change.
You're loyal too.
I'm loyal. I like patterns. I like consistency.
Creature of habit.
I am a creature of habit. And especially if I've made changes, and I've talked about this personally with me in the past, I've made changes in my life that did not work out for the better. They actually, set me back. They set my family back a little bit. And because of that, I have reservations about making a change again. But as time has gone on and certain things have happened where I have considered making another change voluntarily, because my wife is so supportive of me, that makes it easier to make those changes.
Big deal.
Because I have, my wife knows I'm not going to do something that's going to jeopardize us.
All right. So let me dive into that real quick. Why is it so important that you have your wife as support? If you didn't have your wife, and I'm not getting into the pandemic conversation again, but if you didn't have your wife as a support, would you make those moves? Because if you don't have anyone tied in or someone counting on you, if I did conversation, it should be easier to make those moves.
Yeah.
Right.
If I
from
did
the outside looking in,
if I didn't have my wife, if I didn't have a household to support, and it was just me, living in my 1-bedroom apartment, 600 square feet, like I would probably be much more readily available to make those changes, because that change only impacts me.
Yeah.
When there's another person involved, there's a lot more factors for me that go into make change like that.
Right.
Like I have to make sure that what I'm doing is not just for my own benefit, but it's also for my family's benefit as well.
Absolutely.
I can't just be selfish and be like, I'm going to go do whatever I want to do. I can't sit there and say, hey, honey, I'm going to, take half of our savings and go do this. Well, if that doesn't work out, we are screwed.
So you feel more pressure because you have someone tied in.
It's not necessarily
which from all right.
It's not necessarily pressure. It's more of being able to provide. Like there's more factors to consider. I can't just consider what I want to do.
You have the mentality of taking care of other people that are involved. That's what I say pressure. I use the word pressure. It's not that. It's like sometimes if you're on your own and you walk away from a job, the income and all that stuff, it's like the only person you're hurting at that moment is yourself. So when I say pressure, it's not I'm sorry, it may not be the right word, but when you have that, when you have someone else that you're involved with, right? You have someone that hopefully supports you, but talking to you two, you also want to support them.
Of course.
So sometimes you hold on longer because it was just you. This is something that I equate to. It's not what you might think, but the grass is always greener type thing. Well, if it was just me, I'd walk away in a heartbeat.
I'd move.
It's
I'd go
like
somewhere.
Yeah, but how are you going to pay your bills? Now you're going to go in debt and maybe lose your housing for yourself. That's a rationalization, right? If you if you do that when someone else is involved, obviously now it's compounded to a point. But if it was just you, you're still going to lose your housing. You're still going to lose those things if you walk away from that. There's got to be a self-realization that you got to take care of yourself to take care of that other person. And in my opinion, I'm of that opinion.
You're right. But like, if I had to really simplify it down, it's easy. If I was still single, like, it's real easy for me to pick where I'm going to go to dinner. I can pick whatever the fuck I want.
Always.
When there's someone else, especially if that someone else may have dietary restrictions, I can't just sit there and say, I'm going to go to dinner here. No,
there's Red Baron pizza.
There's another person involved, and we have to make a decision that we both agree upon.
Teresa says marriage should be 100% partnership, both supporting one another and calling out each other's shit, taking risks.
I was about to say, I'm sure she.
I hope you do too.
No, I do.
All right, so get back to this. So to Ray's point, I don't know if he's still on.
Of course, he is.
Everyone impacted by the decision making needs to participate. So I looked this up, right? So we're talking about mental health a little bit, and I want to get into what you're talking about. Let's change gears a little bit here. Stay on the subject. We're 2 hours in here overall. So this is mentalhealth.gov.
Okay.
And when I looked this up, I actually did a little bit of online research, whatever you want to call that, right? So some Google searches. But when you talked about this, Shawn, and you wanted to discuss this, it's interesting that this came up, like the latest link was in 2020. So this is mentalhealth.gov. And right below that, look at that. What does that say?
Mental health. Oh.
Read that into the mic.
What is mental health?
No, right below mentalhealth.gov.
Oh, let's talk about it.
Right.
Yeah.
So what is mental health? And they go into this, and I want to give this as a overall disclaimer, right? Trying to keep this surface level to a point. Over the course of your life, if you experience mental health problems, your thinking, mood, and behavior could be affected. Many factors contribute to mental health problems, including, they list biological factors such as genes or brain chemistry. I read another one that said genetics. Goes into life experiences such as trauma and abuse. Absolutely.
Sure.
I go to the extremes, right? If anyone's ever studied serial killers, this is something that they absolutely tie into that. Most serial killers are something that has been in their history to go in that trauma that has triggered them to that point where no one necessarily has diagnosed them into that point, right? So this is something that's important. And then listen, biological factors, life experiences, and then right below that, family history of mental health problems.
Right.
A lot of the same things there. There is something that is transferring between those three top things that even .gov says that. I'm not trying to make a point with this. Always help, and I say this. Early warning signs. So Shawn, you're going to talk a little bit about what you've been going through, right? So early warning signs of mental health is, and not ours, but this is a conversation. I hope you guys are enjoying it. I hope you guys want to chime in, but these are bullet eating or sleeping too much or too little.
Yep.
You don't want to get out of bed. You don't want to go to bed. Pulling away from people and usual activities, having low or no energy, feeling numb or like nothing matters, having unexplained aches and pains. That's an interesting one. feeling helpless or hopeless, smoking, drinking or using drugs more than usual, feeling unusually confused, forgetful, on edge, angry, upset, worried, or scared, yelling or fighting with family and friends, experiencing severe mood swings that cause problems in relationships, having persistent thoughts and memories you can't get out of your head. That's a big one.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You're stuck
Yep.
on the trauma. Hearing voices or believing things that are not true. That's a big one. Thinking of harming yourself and others. That's getting more severe. Inability to perform daily tasks like taking care of your kids or getting to work or school. These are things that are supposed to be the early signs.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think you have power to diagnose that, self-diagnose those early signs?
I do now, just because of all the shit I've had to deal with, like just being going through
hindsight, right?
Yeah, just from experience.
This is from the website. Ways to maintain positive mental health include getting professional help if you need it, connecting with others, staying positive, getting physically active, helping others, getting enough sleep, developing coping skills.
Mm-hmm. You learn the coping skills a lot from talking to like a counselor or getting some kind of like help that they really go on a really path.
Absolutely.
That's what's helped.
Well, and I think also part of what you just read, Steve, like there are things that you can do personally on your own,
Sure,
but those are going to get you so far.
Right.
Like if doing things on your own, if it doesn't get you exactly to where you need to be, it gets you close to the mountaintop. Like you may need something external to get you over that hump.
Right.
You can take care of, 80, 90% of the grunt work, but then you need just this external factor to actually help you get over the remaining 10, 20% or whatever. I'm just making numbers up, but you can only do so much.
Right.
And if what is within your control doesn't get you to where you want to be, that's when you start looking at outside factors and start reaching out for outside help, whether it just be, from friends, from family, loved ones, or whether it be from professional people to actually get you there.
Don't answer. Don't.
I want to ask. No, I want to answer the one you talked about earlier.
Which one?
Whatever one he.
Oh yeah. Let me find it here. We're looking up a comment earlier here. No, that's not it. What is it? Jeez. All right, I'll read it here. I don't think that's entirely a fair perspective. Shawn didn't exactly walk away, if I remember it correctly, which, Ray is a loyal listener, good member of the community. Mm-hmm. He was let go from his career position and took an opportunity that came up with Amazon. No offense to Shawn. Go ahead with that.
Yeah. So it's not like I couldn't have found another job. I've got a lot of experience. If I could have easily been furloughed and looked for another aviation company if I wanted to. But I think at that point, I was just at a point where I was kind of getting burnt out for all those years. And I felt, and it wasn't like well, screw it, I just want to go work at Amazon. It was, Teresa and I, my wife, sat down for a long time and, kind of hash things out and, what is it we want to do? And as a family, and, Teresa was supportive in whatever decision I made. But, I knew that if I would have gone right back into it with a company, I could have gone down the same road as what I've been in the past. So as a matter of fact, while I was in Amazon, I had been approached by a couple of different companies wanting to, hire me. And I told them no, because I was still at a point where I was enjoying Amazon. I wasn't ready. And I wanted to make sure I found the right fit. And I think that was the most important thing I did, because I wanted to go into position. And when I was interviewing with these guys, I was very clear about that. Like, this is what I've dealt with in the past, and this is what I really don't want to see happening down the road. And they were like, listen, this is not how we operate. We understand, like, time with your family is important. We not, try to work you too hard. And so when I finally did my research on them, and the guy that kind of came to me with it all, I've known him for umpteen years in the industry, and he's always shot me straight. Great guy, and I've always enjoyed working with him. And he's a really good friend of mine. And seeing what they had to offer and seeing the growth that was there, and seeing, he knew what I went through, that made a big difference. And I would still be in Amazon if this company hadn't approached me, because I wanted to make sure that I had the right people in the right match. And fortunately I did. So that's
Good.
You and I have a lot of similarities in that aspect. Because when I had been let go from a previous employer, the very next thing I did was I just got a job, a job that provided.
You gotta pay the bills.
It wasn't something I wanted to do. Like, I didn't want to work in the produce department at Kroger. That's not what my life goal was, but it was something that paid me money to do. And it was something I could easily do regardless of what my experience or background was. You know, kind of like with working in restaurant or fast food industry, like, it doesn't matter what you do before. If you're able to get on, like, they'll hire you because they need people. So it doesn't matter what your experience is. They're looking for people who are looking for an opportunity and for income. But then once you have that coming in and you're a little bit more stable, now you can actually make choices on what you want to do. Mm-hmm. Obviously, working at Kroger was not something I wanted to do long term. And when an opportunity came up with my current employer, I took that opportunity. It wasn't necessarily starting out something I wanted to do, but it was a paycheck, and I was still doing Kroger on the weekends. So for the 18 months that I worked at Kroger, during that entire time period, I always had 2 jobs, and I had 7 days off in 18 months. I was just working myself like crazy in order to be able to provide for my family. Then once I got into a position where things were a little bit more comfortable, then I got a little bit more selective. There was one company that I'd applied to in the cigar industry. Had a phone call with them while I was at work about an opportunity.
Yeah.
And like, the opportunity sounded great. And then they mentioned that they wanted me to move, which, going back to what you brought up earlier, Steve, if I was by myself and I wasn't married, I would have very easily made that move.
That's good. Not everyone could. I've been in that situation. I don't make that move. I
would have moved from Columbus to Pittsburgh where they wanted me. But because I had someone else that would have had to make that move too, I actually told them, I was like, yeah, I can do that. My wife got to make that move, and she's kind of as well. And they were like, oh, you're married. Like, wife's got to have to find another job. Well, I don't know if this is going to work. I'm like, okay, then it's not.
So it's knowing yourself. Obviously, that's a big thing. And I'll bring in some of my personal experience in the last year or so. But I do want to bring up something that came. I actually sent it to myself. And again, I can't back this up. I don't know if this was something that was brought up to the mass media. But what I find interesting where we're at and what you've gone through, Shawn, and I love the fact that Ray brought this in, because the reason you made a career change was because of COVID-19 and the shutdowns that followed, right? I mean, there's no way to go about it. Like, if not, was that a good job before?
It was okay.
It was okay.
Yeah.
But you were happy. You were happy enough. You were plugging away. Not the full circle thing where you love where you're at now.
Yeah. No.
But you may or may not have been in this new situation if you didn't get tossed to the wild, right? You know, so COVID, hey, we're not doing this. Your position's being dissolved, and you're not fired, being let go because of the outstanding circumstances. Mm-hmm. The things that a lot of people don't want to talk about, what happened in the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. Like, this was something that happened. I was at like something simple. I was literally between work and running errands tonight before the podcast. I went to PetSmart and I walked into the store just getting pet food, Tony's dog food and a couple treats. And there was a line halfway back into the store because there's one cashier. And I was like, oh my God. Like, I heard this. So I was like standing like, oh, they don't have 2 registers open. I was like, want to say something, but I'm going to refrain from it.
I'm surprised you held your tongue, Steve.
I had a mask on because I still respect that. I'm not for
Even
that.
more the reason why I'm surprised you.
Well,
So I'm not going to say the source, but it is one that came out 2 days ago. I got an alert. So seasonal affective disorder. We talked about this, right? This is very relevant, in my opinion, to what we're talking about. And you guys may not think that listening in, and I hope you guys look at this, but how to fight the winter blues on Blue Monday.
Ooh.
So it starts with, does the wintertime make you want to hibernate like a bear? If you've ever felt less energetic, less motivated, in a bad mood, and less inclined to socialize as nights get longer and the days grow shorter, know that these feelings are shared by many.
Not for me personally.
Listen, though. Seasonal, this is where I lost it on this article.
Oh, Steve lost his shit. Here we go.
Seasonal affective disorder, or what do you think they call that? Sad. You fucking kidding me on that?
I thought that was Single Awareness Day.
No, it's anything.
Okay.
But seasonal affective disorder, or SAD, all in caps, is a form of recurrent depression with a seasonal pattern. I can see the viewership probably going down at this point. I'm fine with that because this is our podcast. With a seasonal pattern that occurs more frequently, the farther people live from the equator, that makes sense, right? So the winter's bigger,
Longer.
right? Yeah. I'm still in it. So typically during the colder months of the year, the winter blues are said to peak on the third Monday in January, sometimes called Blue Monday. You ever heard of that?
Yes, I have. I never knew why though.
But
Heard
of
the
course,
song Blue Monday.
feeling low isn't confined to just one day. Among the symptoms of SAD are, what's the number one?
That they're sad.
Sadness.
Nailed it.
Dude, this is
Or just depression.
low energy, fatigue, losing interest in activities we once enjoyed, changing in appetite, weight and sleeping patterns, and social withdrawal. While SAD is more prevalent among women in their fertile years. Yeah. Can you read that with like a social, like, so fertile years?
I think our audience completely missed that.
I talked to a bit of the audience about that. It's like, so
Like I think
so
the ladies in the
during-
audience, if they'd heard that,
that was the most politically correct way of saying that there are mood swings while you are dealing with your menstrual cycle. But they glance over this. It affects both men and women.
Uh-oh. Steve just triggered the girls.
Yeah,
Now
you're not
the
listening to the
ladies
first
heard
part,
it.
right? So,
Grab
hey,
the
yeah,
mic. Grab the mic.
that's fair. Yeah, I'm mansplaining things. 5% of Americans experience SAD in the syndromal form, right? So this expert, Dr. Rosenthal, he is the author also of a book. Interesting.
Of course.
Yeah. Winter Blues. So if you guys want to buy the book, you guys check that out. About 15% more Americans deal with this form where symptoms may not be severe enough for diagnosis. So you can't, so the expert is saying you experience this, but it's not going to be severe enough for diagnosis.
Okay.
1 in 5 people are having some trouble with the winter, this expert said.
So,
all right, so you fast forward. What causes SAD, right? This is, bear with me here. All right, so it's about the biological vulnerability such as genetics and gender, which is glanced over, reduced environmental light and stress as causes for the disorder. So you fast forward here, and I'm not glancing over. This is on I can forward you to this website if you guys want to look at this. Is that it's about serotonin that they don't have this. And what have we talked about on this podcast before with vitamin D, getting outside, doing these things, right? Getting out and doing something for yourself. When I know it's not always easy, and that's why I want to actually lead
exercise,
this in.
dopamine.
Well, I want to do this because, Ray asked you about Shawn, and he was saying, are we still talking about this topic? Mental illness or mental clarity.
Mm-hmm.
So what I really find interesting in this article is that I think this is a major public health problem, and most people are still very ignorant about treatment opportunities because feeling crummy during the winter is such a commonplace experience. You fast forward, and their big thing is light.
Light.
They want to do the 10,000 lux. They advise people to do 10,000 lux 7 days a week for 30 minutes a day during the winter months.
10,000 lux?
So lumens and lux. Yeah, same thing. The light that, like, you could sit in this garage with the light that Shawn bought for the garage. God damn, that's about like 30,000 lux. You sit out here, you smoke a cigar. Don't even light a cigar. You sit out here, you light a heater up, and you sit under the light, right? You gave us a sunshine out here.
That's right.
We do the podcast on this. It's very interesting as you go through this. Here's what I want to say of this article. As you go through this, of the sad diagnosis, don't burrow in like a bear. Keep active, and remember that how you behave is going to affect how you feel. This is the expert on this subject. This is seasonal depression. I'm not talking about COVID. I'm not talking about anything. This is just what we're talking about right now. But you guys, is there parallel to this? Is that he also emphasized the importance of what? Staying active. Exercising, going outside for walks during the daylight hours, and staying social.
Yeah.
This guy wrote a book, probably getting paid by grants, all this stuff. These articles are coming out now. What I will say, and this is what I want to lead into what Shawn, you want to talk about with what you've been going through, you want to share this, is that if you are a loyal listener of the podcast, or if you're a new listener of the podcast, I went through a tough time just over a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep.
What was my first move?
You started,
I've preached vitamin D. I've preached taking care of yourself. I preached exercise.
I know the answer.
But I was not a quiz. But, and I'm not saying I'm right. But the one thing I did, this Dr. Rodenthal or whatever, that he's writing a book and making money off of, because clearly he is. I've learned enough in my life that I could have easily continued to be hibernating. It happened this time of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying I got all this stuff like licked and all this stuff. And if it happens again, I don't know how. We go through those trials and tribulations, but Shawn, you saw it. Nate, you saw it. If you've been a part of the Bourbon and BS podcast. So checking in on mental health. That's why I want to hear what Shawn has to say. What did I
morning walks? That's when they started.
So think about that. The morning walks, not the end all be all. But when you think about that, it was in the cold season.
Yeah, it was December when you started.
I made a choice for myself to get out of the house.
Mm-hmm.
Not to get into the specifics of that situation, but when things were going wrong. In the past, all I would hole up. I would do all that stuff. One of those things that I've learned over those years is not only look after, check under the hood, get blood tests, do all those things, make sure things are working right. All those, like, that I brought in those early signs of the mental illness or mental issues, is all of these things. Is that what's the reoccurring thing? Get out.
Yeah, and
I feel for the people that can't do that, but at the very least, when I give the advice of go out and take a walk, I did that for months.
Yeah,
religiously. I didn't have a dog at the time. I literally just got out every morning and I gave myself that time to take a 1, 2, 3 mile walk, because it was a self-reflection thing. I knew that it was not a good point in my life, that I needed to take those steps. I needed to literally take those steps. I needed to get out there. All of these people that are writing these articles that now is making the mass media is about, like, well, why do you think? Because people were holed up in their homes because they were scared to leave them.
Mm-hmm.
I saw people initially wearing masks on the walking paths because that's where the narrative was. I was out there just walking every day.
Yeah.
And there's such a good metaphor to that, is that at the very least in your life, when you're dealing with these mental health things, even now, is get out and take one step forward.
Well,
over and over again.
And for you, you're someone that works out, you go to the gym, 4 or 5 times a week. So when all this stuff was happening 13 months ago for you, you were getting out, you were being active, you were still working, you had your day job 5 days a week, you were working out, but the aspect of getting out and taking that walk, like that was you being able to have some alone time to yourself. That when you were taking those walks initially, it was a very different mindset being on that walk versus you just being in the house during that same time period. Like you're going out, you're doing something, but it was also a reflection time. And the reflection time that you had doing those walks was far more beneficial than if you had just spent that exact same amount of time in your house. Could you have had those, self-reflections and stuff while sitting on your couch in front of the TV? Possibly.
No.
But I said possibly.
No. I'm looking at comments come out here.
You actually getting outside, you're forcing yourself to have a conversation internally with yourself, but you were also looking around and taking in what was around you. You were taking in the scenery, you were taking in the experience. It wasn't just about having reflection time, because like I said, it's possible that you can do that while still in your house, but it's different. It hits differently when you're actually outside walking, smoking a cigar, taking a walk, and doing stuff like that. And it was such a positive benefit to you that it even influenced some of the other people in the community.
Right.
Other people started taking those walks as well and doing the same thing and benefited from it. And so much so that whenever you wouldn't post pictures of your walk, they would actually reach out to you and ask if you were okay.
Right.
Because they thought, oh, no, Steve didn't post pictures of his walk. He may not have gotten outside. I hope he's okay. And you're like, no, I actually did go out and walk. I just didn't share the pictures from it.
Yeah.
But it brought up a level of concern where, people wanted to make sure, because they saw the benefit that it had to you personally. They wanted to make sure you were still doing that because they wanted to see that positive side and you're working your way through your shit.
There are also people that actually reached out through that, because I was actually publicizing that through the social media, right? Is that doing that, I had several people that were reaching out, whether they were dealing with stuff. Everyone, the great equalizer at that point was everyone was dealing with shit because it was out of their control, right? It was timed perfectly that there were still restrictions. There were still all these things going on that it timed up perfectly for some people that they were starting to post walks. They were starting to post, not only concerned that I wasn't taking those walks. It was one of those things. So, and Teresa, Shawn says, and it's great, valid point. Sad, which I'm not trying to bash, but it's too easy to do that. Seasonal thing, sad and clinical depression are very, very different. Absolutely. But what I'm trying to relate to everyone is that in this part 2 is that there are some reoccurring themes. However you get out there, the seasonal depression, if it's just depression, if it's anxiety, and I looked up all this, and I can share all that stuff if we want to get into that, but there are very, very consistent things that when you do that, there are common there are common behaviors where you hole up.
Yep.
So that hibernate like a bear thing for seasonal depression. For depression, you hibernate. You close in.
You disconnect.
So I don't know how you get out there, and that's what I want to talk to you, Shawn, about while we get into the late part of part 2. I do want to turn it back to you, what you're going through, because you said you'd offer it. and you don't have to, but all these people, like, even Ann's, she said, I want to get out and do a walk. It's not that simple. It's not the end all cure all, but
it's a good step. No pun intended.
Pun intended. It is a good step.
Yeah.
You can't, if you hole up,
and it's cheap.
It's a quicksand type mentality. Things are going bad. You are in quicksand, and you need to like reach out to have someone pull you out. Sometimes it's something as simple as a conversation and listening to a podcast on a Wednesday night or whenever you listen to this, is that I took walks for months. I still take walks. Oddly enough, now that I have a dog, I take less walks than I was by myself. I did it for myself.
Yeah.
I needed to get out. I pushed myself. I did all the other things that we can talk about if you want, all the Western medicine, taking pills, all the things that they're starting to talk about again, like with COVID and all that stuff. It's literally is. I was listening to a podcast. I'm not going to mention it, but it was one of those things that the person was asked, what do you see about the fitness industry in the next 10 years? And the outlook was more important than ever is it's about people responding that based on what happened with what's going on right now with close downs, not meant like your close down was related to COVID, but it wasn't because you had COVID. So these are those types of things but what are people that are trying to better themselves doing? They learn from this. They want to take better care of themselves so that the next time this comes around, they aren't the ones that are susceptible to whatever might come on when a virus comes on. That's the great lesson. That's the better practices. Go out. It's not necessarily working out to get a six-pack. It's be active.
Yeah.
Go out and walk. Eat better.
That took me.
Go to a doctor for preventative maintenance. If you're taking, and I've said this before, if you're taking better care of your car than you're taking care of yourself, right? Oil changes, going in for the PMs, right? There's like, hey, 60,000 miles, you need like these types of things. All right, I'll pay for it. And then when the doctor says, hey, you take these tests, I don't know if I need to. I feel okay. So did your car without feeling.
But then it caused a bigger, more expensive problem later on down the road.
Your transmission went out.
If you didn't nip it in the bud earlier.
One thing I want to say real quick regarding Charlie Creekmore's comment. He said something about, I'm with you, Steve. I do it all the time, 3 miles a day minimum. And it does as much more for my mind and spirit than it does for my body. No doubt about it, Steve. Meditation, antidote to daily life frustrations, mental exercise, but best therapy for sure. Steve, great stuff. So one of the big things that when I've been talking to my counselor lately is meditation, because, and he's like, don't go crazy. Do 3 minutes in the morning, 3 minutes a night. Just ground yourself, be present, because that interrupts your thinking. Like your mind will start to think a certain thing and then your body reacts to it. Or you start projecting. Well, I know today I'm going to go to work and it's probably going to suck because I'm going to get yelled at, blah, blah, blah. So you're already defeated before you even start. And that can be a vicious cycle.
Yep.
And the way with meditation, I've been doing it is just like now I'm starting to rethink things. Now I'm not dreading things. Again, I think I said earlier, I made a mistake that I knew in the past I'd gotten my ass reamed for. It wasn't a big deal, but they made it a big deal. Instead of taking that and learning from or doing that I used to do, just the same mental process and creating this physical response of heart rate at 110 at resting, starting to feel like I had migraines for a week and shit like that, to now is just take a step back. Hey, this isn't going to end your career. This is a simple mistake that you need to learn from and interact. Because I remember when I first did make these mistakes, my God, man, I would start to go into like this panic attack mode. And my bosses were like, what the fuck's your problem? I'm like, you don't understand. I used to go through this for so long that I was just become mentally prepared to think that was going to happen.
Bit of a perfection thing.
Right. And now with these meditations, it kind of rewires my brain to be like, to step back and think, and I just automatically assume this is what's going to happen. And it doesn't take much, and it's so it grounds you, literally just brings you back to the present. And I think I've always been with counselors before, they're always talking about like, there's never a problem till there is one. Stay in the present. And to really do that can be harder when you're in that depressed state or you're in an anxious state or whatever, because it's when you're going through that shit, it's easier said than done. But when you have time to, like, when you're not going through that, prepare yourself so that when it happens, you're ready for it.
You had so
you
many.
have to respond too. I'm
preparing myself to respond to something instead of responding like I always do with the projecting of this is how it's going to be. Now it's more of a, I'm going to respond, but not in a panicked matter. You know what I mean? It's more of a, just assess the situation. How bad is it really?
Sorry, Nate. Like, why? Like, talk about your fitness thing. Like, I know everyone's probably tired of that, but like, you're dialed into fitness.
Mm-hmm. Oh, back with Amazon, yeah. And it was earlier, but
where are you at right now?
I'm at it now. You guys make fun of me for it, but I have Oculus, and there's this workout program.
No, I'm not making fun of it.
But
that's a classic thing. I'm sorry. Like, that's
I'm projecting. I'm projecting right there.
Yeah, you're like, oh yeah, you don't think this is real, but
see, you called me on it.
Yeah, so it's like one of those things. Though it's like when you get active.
But I love it. It's
when
like
you've slipped. A lot of people, when they slip and they realize that they're letting themselves slip, they now want immediate results.
And that's also been a problem I've had of, well, I got to go to the gym 5 days a week, and I've got to do more than I can really handle, and then I get burnt out or I get hurt or whatever.
Right.
Now it's more of a, and Teresa helped me a lot with, I was all about cared about how I looked, and I wanted the 6-pack, and I had to eat this perfectly. And if I screwed up, if I didn't do something right, I'd like, if I ate a bad meal, I'll screw it. I'm done now. It's black thinking more. I'm doing things slow and doing things that I enjoy. And then also when I'm done, I want to look forward to going back to it the next day instead of busting my ass. So I can't, I can barely breathe, and I pulled a muscle, and now I've screwed myself. Now it's more of the thing I do in this Oculus thing. It's like this, it's really cool. It's fun. And by the time you're done, you're breathing heavy, but you don't even realize you're doing it. And that's the kind of thing for me, that's perfect. And I think down the road, I'll probably get back to the gym again, because I'm going to, I've learned that when I do work out more and I do things that I enjoy, I really tend to want to eat better. Like it's just kind of an A and B thing. Hey, if you work out, you're going to want to eat better. So, but if I screw up, it's not a end of the world kind of thing. And it's been a hard process for me, but it's another process.
Well, I think part of the reason why it's a hard process. So in your previous role, your previous aviation role, you got so used to whenever you would make a mistake being reamed for it, that it programmed you to where anytime you'd make a mistake, you'd automatically feel bad for it.
That's a really good point.
And now, because you're in an environment where it's not that way, and initially you weren't used to that, now you have to rewire
exactly
how you respond and how you feel to that.
That's excellent.
And just like with the working out, with the eating, you did something for so long, you got in a habit, and it may have been a bad habit. And then now that things are different, like you actually have to realize things are different. I don't have to react the same way. I don't need to react the same way. And fortunately for you, you're in a position where if something goes wrong, you don't have to react in the same way. But that was one of those, it wasn't because you made the choice, I'm not going to react a different way. You had people around you, people you worked for, that told you you didn't have to react that way.
Right.
So you had external factors that were helping you to better process what you made a mistake on, but react differently.
Yeah.
I know in my previous position, because of the workload I had, because of the expectations I had upon me, if I made a mistake, just like you, if I made a mistake in my previous position with my current company, I felt like crap. and I was going to make it a point to bust my ass, work myself to death to not make that mistake again. Because I made a mistake and because how it affected things, I never want to make that mistake again because I didn't want to let that person down. I didn't want to disappoint someone, whether it be my manager, a sales rep, whatever it was. Because of what was expected of me, I didn't want to ever make that mistake again because either I made myself feel like crap or other people made me feel like crap. Yep. In my current position, because I don't have quite the workload or responsibility that I had before, if I do make a mistake, I don't have to feel the same way I did. Now, I still hold a certain expectation of performance in my own mind. Like I still expect myself to do things the way I'm supposed to do it. I don't want to make a mistake. That's not just because of work. That's also because of growing up playing sports. When you play baseball, they record errors. You don't want to be the guy that makes an error. If you play football, you don't want to be the guy that makes a penalty. Right. Or has a drop pass or something like that. Like you don't want to make that mistake. But the mentality side of it is, if you have a coach or a significant other or a manager that actually takes the time to sit there and say, hey, I realize you messed up. It's okay. It's not the world. It's not going to cost us the game. Like your mistake's not going to shut down the company. Right. The company's not going to go out of business because of a mistake that you made. We just have to work on not making it again. But also, it's not just, hey, you fucked up, don't do it again. It's, hey, you fucked up. Here's how we can improve.
Yep.
Here's how we can. It's not just a reaming. It's also, I'm going to provide you the tools of how to do things better so that way this doesn't happen again. Yep. And that comes from the external factors, not just yourself. You can sit there and say, I don't ever want to make this mistake again, but it helps a great deal. Kind of like when I talked about earlier, like you can get yourself 80, 90% of the way, but sometimes it's very beneficial to have that other external party get you that last part over the hump. Yeah. And sometimes that can be a defining factor in whether or not you do get over that hump.
I know that I used to coach soccer for years, and I was very good with like helping kids. And I wish it's funny, I was really good at helping them, learning from their mistakes and not making a big deal out of it because I learned of being on the other end and being reamed for it all the time. It's too bad I didn't teach myself that sooner. But I want to answer a question Ann Demick wrote, if I can find it. Thinking back, who were you trying to please? Does this stem from a critical parent? Again, ignore if way too personal. No, it's not personal. I did have, like, my parents are still together. I love them dearly, but my mom grew up with a mother who was alcoholic and kind of lived with that. Things were never good enough. Always criticizing my mom for whatever she did, even up until my mom was adult and I was in my 20s. But my mom kind of projected something onto me, but not in a mean way. Like I used to play soccer, and if it'd be playing a team that was super competitive or that was really good, she'd be like, "Yeah, you guys are gonna lose." And it's like, well, wow. And she wasn't being a dick about it. She was being more of a, I don't want to, don't get too hype. I just don't want to burst your bubble. Just prepare to lose. And a lot of that shit stuck with me, and I think that caused a lot of me projecting with a lot of the things I've dealt with. So that's a great question, Ann, because it's something I've been trying to work on, and it's something that I recognize over the years. And every day for me is a process. Every day for me is a step in the right direction. Even if I take a few steps back, I still try to keep moving forward. And with the help of my friends and my wife and my family, it's been nothing but a positive thing. Even when things have been rough, the one thing that I can say is my friends and my family love me unconditionally, and no matter how bad I would mess something up, they're always going to be there in my corner. And I think that's another reason why I'm still fighting the good fight, because of them.
Well, same thing that Nate
it helps to have that supporting cast.
Yeah. Having his wife.
Yeah. I mean, my wife she's a saint, man. I mean, she's watched me go through hell and back for not just mentally, physically, with my brain tumor and my heart shit and everything else. And, you know, and that's one thing I can say. I've never been on that end. I've never had a spouse go through the shit that I went through. I don't even know to begin how she felt or dealt with that. And kudos to her for always being in my corner when shit was getting really real. And whether it was physical or mental.
Don't discredit that though. Like you also went through that.
I know. No, I know that.
I'm not trying to discount what you're saying though, is that there is something that you learned from that person. Mm-hmm. So Teresa was one that went through that. Absolutely. You can't have the identity to what she went through, but through your growth, that I know you well enough that you have that open appreciation to, you always want to know that why.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you may not have that experience, but that's part of learning sometimes, is that you learn from other people's experiences through all this stuff, that mental health side of it. Like she struggled through that.
Mm-hmm.
You were struggling from a different aspect.
Yeah.
But I think that's a very important takeaway for a lot of people, is that, thank you for sharing that. It's very impactful, is that she experienced something, you experienced something, and they weren't the same.
Mm-hmm.
But now after all that stuff,
mm-hmm.
it's not just you hit that checkpoint, because now you're experiencing new hurdles like everyone has with personal relationships, but you were able to get through that. And the fact that you appreciate that, and I know I feel confident that you have had those conversations, mm-hmm. that it's not about feeling guilty sometimes for you guys that go through this stuff. It's not about feeling guilty about the fact that you weren't on the other side of this situation, of that mental health, right? The fact is that you stuck through it on your side.
Yeah.
They stuck through on their side. And it's so beneficial, because if you have an honest appreciation of your side of things, along with a respect and thankfulness for their side of things,
mm-hmm.
that prepares you for the next
hurdle.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I remember, and this is kind of something
that's moving forward, by the way. By the way, that's growing, that's moving forward. It's not just you can't bring up the past sometimes with mm-hmm. this.
Yep.
A lot of the reading those precursors, a lot of those things that you get stuck in the past,
mm-hmm.
you get stuck in
yep.
that moment.
Yep.
That's a big mental health issue.
Yep.
So even when you go through it like you did, what you went through and your now spouse went through,
mm-hmm.
and again, in episode 96, I think we said,
mm-hmm.
you shared all that stuff. So much has happened since then
yeah.
that you can't just be stuck in that I owe you, or they did so much. No, I'm not saying you did that, but I'm saying like people do that.
Yeah. I remember
they hold a tally, right?
Yes.
A lot of people do. The healthy way is like, let's learn from each other. I was on this side, you were on this side, and you appreciate that person being on that side, whether it be your marriage, your romantic relationship, your career, whatever it is. But what I love about what you say, Shawn, is that you and Teresa are at this point now that is a constant up and down, just like any other relationship.
Mm-hmm.
The outside factors the last 2 years, absolutely tax that relationship, just like everyone's relationship, personal or otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look at your career wise, you made strides, you made moves, you made sacrifices.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened? Yeah. It doesn't always work as well as what you went through.
Mm-hmm.
There was a short period of time, 1 year out of how many years? How old are you?
52.
52.
51. Sorry, 51.
So 51 years old.
Wishing I'm 52.
So glance over 20, right?
Oh,
So 20 is growing up in college, and
yeah,
you don't know, like but look at that. So what? 30 years? 1 year where you stepped back because it was forced upon you, and you still worked. And then now a year later, you can't shut up about how happy you are in your career.
Yeah.
And what does that do to your personal relationship?
Oh, it just improves upon
Everything's
everything.
greater because you believed in yourself.
Yeah.
But what I love about this, and this is a thing for you guys out there, is that, whether, we talked about this, if you're on your own, Nate, or you had someone there, is that the one thing you can do it for yourself, you can do it for the person or the family that's holding on to you for the support. I think it is a huge lunge for you, Shawn, that you did what you did. It's not always just that clean that you just dive back into your industry, but it happens all the time. And the fact that you went from a career that you were happy with, but it wasn't great, but it was really good. You're paying bills. You were doing well. You felt comfortable. And then you went and worked in a warehouse. Doesn't matter if it's Amazon or otherwise. You went and worked in a warehouse. There are a lot of people out there today, especially, that you could easily said, I lost my job. All right, well, I'm going to buy an Xbox.
Yeah.
Government's give me money.
We're going to be like Cousin Eddie. He hasn't had a job in 7 years. Well, Catherine says he's holding out for management positions.
My point is
Like,
that you did
job.
something. You kept grinding. You kept doing that. When we talk about mental health, I think this is a huge aspect of it is that you did everything you could. And the fact that, and I appreciate you sharing a bit that you're going through what you're going through, because you are open to everything. But I think that it's something that you have a peer system around you, whether it be a support system through therapy or your family, if you're on your own. But the great part about it is that you dug down deep. And you could have looked at that warehouse job as beneath you. You could have taken unemployment for a long time, especially right now. You could have taken unemployment for a long time. But what you did was, I still got to move. I still got to do this. And before you bring that up, Shawn, I got to tell you this is that, this was great. The reason that I didn't want to steer clear mental health was when you suggest that it's real easy for us on this part 2 of the podcast for us to say, and I was one to say, that's a tough topic. We're not specialized in that. But I love this conversation because what I learned from you as a friend, and also what you shared tonight is that when everything was out of your control, you looked inward. And I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but one of the things that I can see happening, and I saw this from the outside, is that you put your wife and your child first.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
You did. But how did you do it? Which is what really comes into effect for everyone out there, whether you have a significant other and a child or a family. You kept working.
Yeah.
You weren't too good. You didn't have the ego.
Yeah. I try to stay humble.
No, I get you try to stay humble, but you just did. You had a conversation with your spouse. Sometimes you have a conversation with yourself, but sometimes it's like, yeah, I can survive by not doing what I was doing. I'm better than this. But you were one that said, I'm just going to grind.
That's all you can do.
My industry that I have I have this experience, it's not happening right now. So I'm going to grind. When it comes back, maybe. When it came back, you took the opportunity.
And made sure I made the right move to
but
prevent
you didn't
myself
know.
from. Yeah, I didn't, but I had a little more optimism with this company when I first started than I did with anybody else that I wasn't really sure about. I don't know. I just felt good about this one. And like I said, I think the big thing with them too is I was up front and I was like, this is what I've been through. This is what I really want to expect when I come to work for you guys. And they were cool about it. And
that's what I love about it.
And I don't think it was that much to ask. It was just trying to don't be don't micromanage me and don't criticize everything I do. And it was like,
did you have that self-respect before that?
No, because I was dealing with even the times that I'd screw up, even at this company that freaking loves me unconditionally almost. It's like I still had issues with it. And that's why I'm still going to counseling and just fighting through it and moving forward.
Well, it's
All right.
what Steve said. Like, we may not be clinical experts in it, but we are experts in our own life experiences.
Mm-hmm.
We're experts in what we've gone through and what we've done to overcome hurdles in our life. That we are an expert on. And it may not necessarily, be the end all be all for other people, but it can definitely help others or help people at least get the ball rolling.
Mm-hmm. Can you share that one?
Which one?
This comment right here
From Jeffrey?
Yeah. Just because
Yeah.
if you share it, I'll explain why I'm just kind of humbled by it, because I don't know. I
gotta find, is that, no.
It was a little bit up.
Yeah, scroll up. Yep. That Jeffrey. There you go.
Yeah.
Cover. You're good.
I can read it.
Yeah.
It should also be noted how loved Shawn is in the aviation community, like universally loved by hundreds of his peers. He doesn't give himself enough credit for that reputation that he built and earned.
That blows me away. It almost brings me to tears, just because Jeff, he's great. He's one of my really good friends. I've known forever too. And he, I don't look at it that way. I just keep my head down, but I have developed relationships with a lot of people just being in the industry for so long, but I don't know. It's weird. I don't look at it that way, but now that he says it, I can see, but I don't know. It's just very humbling to me, I guess. I really appreciate that, Jeff. And I never away.
Why did you never look at it that way?
I don't know, because you develop a lot of relationships with people over the years, but a lot of it's more like, I could talk to somebody tomorrow that I've known and it's all about business, but I also shoot the shit with them and get to know them over time or become friends with them on Facebook. But I think that I see that now. When I started reconnecting with people, they were like, "Oh my God, where have you been?" And, and I don't I guess take compliments that well. I don't know. It's hard for me to do that sometimes. It's something I'm struggling with too. Like, I don't want to be like, yeah, I'm the man. I don't like being that way. I like to be like, well, that's really cool to see. And it means a lot. And it just helps me, mentally to help me move forward. And again, just to be humble about it. I don't know. It's hard to even explain.
It's tough to be appreciated sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Because I appreciate it. It's more, I've always been along the lines of like, I want to help others. I want to appreciate others. Don't worry about me. I remember when I had my heart thing and I had fluid around my heart 6-7 years ago. And it was at a point where it was pericarditis. And for people who didn't know, and there was a time where they had shock paddles on me and a crash cart. And my BP was like 60/40 and they weren't sure if I was going to make it. And I remember the whole time apologizing to my wife, saying, "I'm sorry I'm putting you through this," just because I hate seeing other people suffer, even if it's at my expense, even if I'm suffering. I hate seeing people that I love suffer because of what I'm going through. I know it's outside of anybody's control, but it's just the way I'm wired.
You were the one going through the problem, but you're apologizing to other people for your problems.
Yeah, and Teresa was getting mad at me for apologizing, so I kept apologizing.
Yeah,
she's like, "Will you shut the fuck up?"
I think so. We go back to a common theme on this podcast is communication. That situation that actually is I'm of the opinion that the mental health side of it is that sometimes you do need to ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what you're going through necessarily with your current counselor but again, having no official background, no PhD in that stuff, but it's like, it's very simple to see that sometimes that people care more about strangers and the bigger picture than they do with their inner circle. Mm-hmm. So when they deal with their inner circle is that you don't know how to put that stress or that responsibility on someone else, because you want to take it on yourself. And I think this is a big part of it, is like reading the things I did earlier about the precursors to mental health issues. A lot of that is not only taking care of yourself, like we know that we've preached on this in the part 2 of the podcast, is get your blood drawn, like, talk to a specialist, make sure your hormones are right. We know this. There is science. All this shit about the vaccine being science, it's like, okay, also, do you know how to take care of yourself? There's also science behind that. Vitamin levels, hormone levels. Is it healthy to eat 3 Big Macs in a meal? If you want to argue that point with us or anyone else, you're going to lose. Okay? Like, those are those types of things that people don't realize, that when they need to take care of themselves, but at a certain point, when it's out of your control and you're doing everything you can rely on the people around you. There are people around you. And that's what I learned from Shawn, is that with this whole thing is, and the fact that you're still doing the self-assessment, you're going through counseling, you're doing all these things. It's the fact that sometimes you can lean on other people. But the only reason you lean on other people is that you give up your own gravity, that you're falling. They will actually pick you up. They'll give you that little bit, right?
Yep.
Just to get you to stand on your own again.
Yep. And I'm thankful for everyone that's ever done it, and you and Nate and all my Shannon's another one, and obviously Teresa. She kind of has to. She's my what now? No, but she's always been just such a pillar in our relationship, and I try to be there for her, and I think I do, but it goes both ways. But a lot of times, and this is another thing I have a struggle with, it's like when it's something that's dealing with me, a lot of times I'll be like, don't worry about me, because I don't want to hinder anybody. I don't want to, and that's something that's probably Catholic guilt, or
that's because you're a guy. You're a person anymore.
I'd rather help than be helped. And I know but I'm finally getting help from somebody else because I need it. I've reached a point where I need to. And I think that's a good message for anybody. It's like, don't do that. What I just said, don't feel like you're hindering somebody. If you need the help, whether it's mental, physical, or whatever, go get it. And if it starts with a friend you need to confide in, start there. If you think you need more, bounce some ideas off of them, or somebody that you're close to, whether it's a girlfriend or boyfriend or spouse or best friend or whatever. Go out there and put yourself out there, and it's only going to help. And again, that's a process for me. I mean, it's another thing I have to deal with. So, but I'm trying. I did the right stuff by seeing somebody because I knew something was wrong. So that's
trying to bring up Ann's comment here.
For anyone has found a good counselor. Yeah. Teresa, I think Teresa just replied to her.
Oh, good.
But yeah, and it's a process. A lot of it's through like word of mouth. Reach out to myself or my wife, Terry Kate. A lot of it's people that we've dealt with in the past that are really, really good people that we've had success with. So that's a good start. And then if anything else, just the guy I found, Teresa helped me with that, and he had really good reviews. And I think is check the reviews, see what people think of that person. And if you'd like, I can send you my guy. He's a really cool dude. So anyway, just let us know. We can help you.
Yeah, I'm trying to, again, the way Facebook works, I didn't get some of those comments. I'm looking at Shawn's phone here. I'm looking at the feed that's on what we're streaming out there, and it's tough to see that far away, but there's a lot of positive comments. I absolutely love this conversation.
Me too.
Steve, when Shawn was making his when Shawn was making his last comment, at one point you chirped in there and saying, "Well, it's because you're a guy." Do you think guys have a harder time reaching out for help?
I think that, yeah, absolutely. I think that there is something with the, not to get into the gender thing, but I think that, guys do. If you talk to, all right, let me say this. if you're of a younger generation, that are some male figures that have the stereotypical, you don't go to the doctor unless you're sick. And if you're sick, you still don't go to the doctor unless you're sick.
Just work that shit out.
Right. I do think that it's not just guys or girls. I think that we are I don't know how to say this. We're of the age right now is that people just don't want to seek help. They would rather put a good face on, whether you're a guy or girl or whatever, whatever the gender, whatever, like all this stuff, is that there is a moment that you have this struggle to seek help. I do think that there is a male stereotypical way of doing that, is that you don't reach out. Yeah, absolutely.
Is it because like our fixer mentality?
Well, I think there's a lineage there. There's that
Okay.
that linear history there. Now that we're getting into the history
Suck
we're in
it
right
up.
now, is that like you don't do it because you're an independent person. You be a male trait. Now it's an independent person. We have now transpired to that. To your point, Nate, is your question is that, and there goes one of your wine glasses.
There's more than one. I think it's okay. It's your wine glasses now.
That's fair. Tony, don't eat that glass. You don't want to eat that. Glass is not tasty.
It's not going to work out in the long
You're
run.
gonna taste a lot of iron. It's mostly from the blood. All right, closing remarks.
Okay. Me?
Yeah, you texting someone?
Yeah, just
I think it's
question about the podcast. The girls that are watching. Sorry.
No need to apologize. I love having the audience. It's amazing.
Yeah. I want to thank you guys for having me on. Number one, number two, for letting us tackle this the subject. Like you said, Steve, it sometimes can be pretty difficult to get the ball rolling with it, but I tried to make it as light as possible without being depressive. But I take a lot of what we talked about and I'm learning from it, and I will learn from it. And I will use this podcast, this conversation, as part of me dealing with shit and coping with things. And I'm very grateful to be in the position I'm at with my job, with my family, with my wife, with my friends. And for anybody out there that's listening and that needs that help, don't be afraid to reach out for whether it is just starting out with a friend that you can confide in, or a spouse. And if it has to go further, go seek help. It's not a big deal to talk to a counselor. It's not the end of the world. It's not that hard to do. Basically, they're just going to ask you questions, and you're going to be talking 99% of the time anyways. And as you talk things out, you start having these aha moments as you talk. And the fact, and I think the one thing I forgot to mention is one of the hardest things about me when I get like really depressed is I shut down. And when I shut down, I don't talk about it and I won't open up. And when you do that, that just, you hold that shit inside, and that shit just builds and builds. And then it puts you in a state where you get in a worse situation. And I can sit here and say that I've done it. I've gone to net care. I was thinking about ending it once or twice. And I had to get to a position where I had to, like, at least I knew what I needed to do. And don't get that far. Don't go down that rabbit hole to where you're in that position like I was. There's ways of coping and dealing with this. And that's why these counselors are out there. They're hired out there to help you. And believe it or not, don't be shocked when you reach out to a couple and find out that they're booked for months out. That just shows that there are a lot of people out there in the same position you're in.
It's going to be more and more now.
Right. And so now I'm Shawn Wilkinson on Facebook. If you look for me on the page, shoot me a message.
Reach out to the podcast. We'll point you in the right direction.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to help anybody that needs it, and just pointing them in the direction that can help them. But don't feel like it isn't for you. And if you have to go through 3 or 4 people, unfortunately, sometimes that has to happen because you may not connect with the first one or even the second one. But there is somebody out there for you. So I love everybody here. I do love my life. And sorry, I just can't think of anything else to say. I'm just very grateful and humbled, and just thanks for sticking in with us. Whoever's ever still listening. That's all I got.
I have a dozen listeners the entire time, which went up and down 20 at some point. People are still listening. They want to hear what you have to say, and I love that.
Thanks.
Nate, how about you for closing remarks?
So as Shawn was talking, one of the comments I posted that popped in while he was speaking was, you have to deal with your check engine light. You know, in cars, that check engine light comes on, or other warning signs come on in the car to let you know that there's an issue. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's a problem that's going to prevent the car from running, but it's letting you know, hey, there's an issue. Deal with it now, so that way it doesn't become a major issue later.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we have an issue dealing with our check engine light. A lot of us, want to just ignore it and just keep driving. Like, well, the car's driving. Like, let's just keep going. As you talked about, Steve, like going and seeing a doctor, or, to Shawn's point, seeing a counselor, like whatever it is. Like when the check engine light comes on in your personal life, in your mental health life, like the first thing you have to do is recognize that the light's on. You have to recognize that there's an issue. If it's something that you can fix, like, oh, I just need to go put air in the tires. Cool. I can go take care of that. That's a small enough issue. I can handle that. Sometimes you need to actually go and talk to someone who deals with engines, and deal with someone who can actually specifically help and fix whatever that issue is. But a lot of it is that initial step of realizing that there is an issue, and then admitting if it's something that you can't handle on your own. I think there's a lot of people out there that they see the lights on, but they have a hard time acknowledging the fact that they can't fix it on their own.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the great things about the community that we have, whether the podcast, the cigar shop, whatever it is, there's a community to where if someone is going through something, they can reach out. If there's someone in the cigar shop that is going through something, there's other guys in the cigar shop that they can reach out to that aren't going to judge them. They're not going to sit there necessarily and be like, well, yeah, you've been, riding your car into the ground. No wonder the check engine light came on. Like their initial thought is, oh, like you're coming to me for help. Cool. What can I do? And I think that's what's great about the community page as well is, we've seen Ryan Jones and some of his posts over the last couple of years that he's been a member of the community page, and all the stuff that he's gone through. Ryan lives in Illinois. There's not a whole lot directly that us in Ohio can do for him, but sometimes it's just that aspect of reaching out. Sometimes just talking to someone is enough to get the ball rolling and get you moving in the right direction. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to dealing with mental health, it's okay if you can't fix the problem yourself. Yeah. That doesn't mean you're a failure. You're not a failure if you're going through problems. You're not a failure if you can't fix it on your own. There's a lot of shit that happens in our lives that are of us that we can't just deal with on our own. Sometimes you need someone else to get you over that hump. You need that other person to help carry you along the way, even if it's just to encourage you to make changes. Yep. They don't necessarily have to make changes in your life. Sometimes all it is a word or a conversation, mm-hmm. and that gets the ball rolling to where then you can actually start making some of these changes. So recognize that a warning light's on.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to reach out if you can't fix it on your own.
I agree.
And let me just, sorry, I know.
No, that's how it always works.
Sorry.
I'll get around to it. No one's listening to mine. That's cool.
He hasn't interrupted you yet.
Real quick.
That's sorry, but yeah.
I just want to kind of.
He's the guest. What do you want?
We'll let that slide.
Tones.
I love you, Steve. I just what you said, just to play off of that, is when you have those situations and you are at a point where you do need help, you end up getting like tunnel vision, and all you can see is through this. And if you do see somebody that's like a counselor, they see the whole picture. They can help.
In the
Yeah.
talked about time in the
And
last 4 years.
They can open up that vision of you to see what you can't see. So
Away my closing remarks. I didn't take away your opening remarks about the whiskey, but you took away my closing remarks. About the hand
I
in the
did
face.
not.
That's
You've
fine.
got so much more to say than hand in the face.
okay, pretend like they didn't say hand and face. Go ahead, Steve.
I agree with everything that everyone said about this stuff. It's so valid, so impactful. I absolutely love this. So closing remarks is for those that to Shawn's point, those that are still listening. Spencer, if you're listening on 2 times right now or 1.5 times right now, it's a lot of fun. I love the fact that everyone tuned in tonight for a long time, and I love that your coworkers actually tuned in. I don't know how many are still into this, but again, we're not experts on this. I can speak from experience, and I've had a lot of situations where my mental health was not what I wanted it to be. And looking back on different experiences, it was good, it was bad, it wasn't healthy, it was healthy, it is healthy again. All those things. I've been on this road that a lot of us has been on for different reasons. The one thing that I learned, and I preach this and I talked about this, is that when I was doing these walks, it sounds super simple. And a lot of people will glance over this shit. But a little over a year ago, I thought my life was going a certain way. This was before COVID, but it was absolutely related to my personal relationship. It was related to the political atmosphere that we were in. You couldn't get away from it. So that your friends, your family, your significant others that were in your life at that point, you tried to differentiate between those things. What I learned from that is you can lose yourself to a point to your job. You can lose yourself to a point with your significant other in your relationship. You can lose yourself and have those mental health issues with your own personal life, no one else involved. You always try to relate it or blame it on something else. The greatest thing you can do, I'm of the opinion, is also build yourself up as a foundation. And you can relate the people that are involved in your life, the significant others, the job, and everything else, and you can succeed at that. But like Shawn being on this, is that he learned a lot from the previous thing that happened before things were taken out of his control. You fast forward, he took sacrifices, he did the grind, he reevaluated himself. He did all these things that people don't want to put the effort into. It's easier to blame other things around you. It's easier to blame the government, the country, the COVID. It's easier to blame the outside factors, the people that hurt you, the girl that, or the guy that broke up with you that's giving you shit, the marriage, whatever, the job that they don't want you anymore, all this stuff. There's a self-evaluation that you will learn from that you can actually succeed from it. It's that whole thing that you can rise from that. And I really think that you take some responsibility on your own life with this mental health thing. And I don't like necessarily the narrative that's coming from right now, the mass media, of now it's okay to feel sorry for yourself, that you are subject to what happened. That's okay to a point. I look at it as, again, many people think it is very simple. I'm reiterating this fact. I know for myself, and I think that it would be beneficial to a lot of our listeners out there, that if you listen to some of the things that we say and people that you surround yourself, whether it be a counselor, a doctor, or whatever, if they don't ask you how you're feeling, the doctor says they want to prescribe you pills, get a new doctor.
Yeah, you have a drug dealer at that point.
You have a drug dealer. If you have a friend says, just leave everything you're doing and care yourself, not helpful. I don't think it's helpful at all. They're projecting on you most likely. I look at it as, if you're struggling, the things I looked at for the precursors of mental health issues, if you can't get out of bed, get the fuck out of bed. That's on you. I'm sorry, it sounds harsh. Get the fuck out of bed. Set your alarm. You don't want to get up? I don't fucking care. Get the fuck up.
There it is. Now Steve's rolling.
Get up. Someone close the door so it doesn't, you know. If you don't want to go to a nice restaurant, enjoy it. If you can afford it, go to a nice restaurant. Eat healthy foods. There is so much. This whole dynamic right now that we're in right now is about, like, you know, the fact that I'm not diving into the rabbit hole of the vaccine or not. But if you are a diehard, I'm biting my fucking tongue on social media when people are talking about this stuff politically or the vaccine thing, and they're doing that's all they talk about. It's like, yeah, it'd be nice. I had someone I was friends with for a long time that was talking about, like, oh, I see all these restaurants that are about, like, you know, now hiring. It's tough to find people. Well, it'd be nice if you offered health care and time off. And it's like, I looked at this person, I'm like, I didn't say this because I don't want to dive into the rabbit hole of social media, of that back and forth. Like, it's not that simple. If you own the business, you wouldn't be able to do it either. Like, it's not as simple as feelings. The mental health is not about feelings. Mental health is about facts. It's about the reality of the world you live in. If you're stuck on the feelings and it would be nice if we did this, that's one thing. But what makes progress is absolutely that, is progress. Get yourself right so you can make change if you want to make change. If all you want to do is bitch and complain about that, it would be nice if we had this, we had that. If my life was better because of this, you're projecting. You got to absolutely get yourself right given the certain circumstances so that you can make a change. First and foremost, in your life and the people around you. I always talk about this. It's your inner circle that you have to make right. If all you're concerned about are strangers based on whatever the social class, the gender, the race, whatever it is, and that's all you fucking day in, day out, that's what you do with your life, you will lose yourself in that, and you will lose yourself in your personal relationships. Start and build a big foundation that is unbreakable in yourself first. If you can't take care of other people, likely it is because you can't take care of yourself, in my opinion. So do what you want to do with your life. If you learn from all these things, the only way that you will build up and carry other people is because you have broad shoulders that you've built upon yourself. It's not about feelings. I'm sorry. For those listening out there, it's not about feelings. It's about building up and the factual things that are about life in general. And Shawn, I'm not your counselor, and I don't know if they would agree with me or not, but when it comes down to it, we can talk about feelings all day. When it comes down to it, I'm of two schools of thought. You got to make sure that you're firing on all cylinders so that you are whole. If everyone leaves you, your job, your family, everyone leaves you, you are firing on all cylinders, and there's a reason that you are whole. You being whole will make other people better. And the other school of thought is learn from others. It's not just on you.
Yep.
You have to combine these schools of thought that you can actually do all this stuff. The mental health thing is that we all want to make other people happy. We want to make ourselves happy second. That's not okay by me. I am learning constantly that I need to do both. If I'm good first, then people around me should be good because I have a like-minded mindset. I'm still learning from them. I'm not telling them what to do. I don't stop learning, but these are those types of things that it's tiring to talk to people that their mindset is the only opinion that matters. There's a sickness in the mental health issue that we are breeding upon ourselves. And I look at that, and this might be too heavy right now. I got some whiskey in me. I got my dog out here. But I look at that relationship is that at some point is that you really need to breed healthiness into your own relationship with yourself and combine it with the people around you. If you have a significant other, that's great. If you have friendships around you, if you have business relationships, it's that confidence people talk about, is that if you can actually exude that, that's the true success. But to your point, Shawn, it's always learning.
Yep.
You thought you were good before the pandemic. You're better now.
Yep.
You didn't know that. You just rolled with it. You kept your nose to the grindstone. You just went after it.
Yep. That's all I could do.
I really think there's something to that it's always about the hard work. It's always about the fact that you really need to find your own identity, which I will say this, that when we talk about mental health, the biggest shortcoming of mental health issues in the day that we're living in is you don't know yourself. So figure out who you are. And it's a long road to do that.
Mm-hmm.
That you might actually find yourself more at ease when you find confidence in yourself. The people around you will actually applaud you for that.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I got.
Cool. It's good.
Guys, cheers. Happy Whiskey Wednesday. Thanks, Tinderbox at Easton, Altitude USA, BS Cigar Company, patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast, and also buyjack.com/Bourbon and BS. Cheers, guys. Hope you guys had a great Whiskey Wednesday. See you next week.
See you.